Okay, and we should be live now. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Welcome to today's stream. I am Lord Maulington, midlife crisis VTuber, and I'm here today to talk about the male VTubing experience with Armchair Expert. Armchair being the PR expert we have in VTubing at the moment, Australian, romantic, lover of literary works, and all that good stuff. Hello, Armchair. How are you?
Good, thank you. Glad to be able to join you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. So, boys, I guess kind of what motivated doing this stream is I just every cycle we have this weird thing where female VTubers or just frustrated and fed up male VTubers start the whole "it's impossible to get ahead as a male VTuber in this industry" kind of thing, or from some female VTubers, you get the whole male VTubers are all sex pests, weirdos, predators, or otherwise dastardly individuals who are pathetic and a joke, essentially. So I thought I'd get Armchair on here, and we could kind of talk a little bit about the male VTubing experience, and I guess kind of talk about the medium as a whole, because even though the two of us aren't, we're not massive channels so that we could make a living off of streaming, but I think we kind of break the narrative from some of the male VTuber antis a little bit, because we're both known for, well, you're a PNG VTuber and I'm mostly known for using this little $50 chibi model. So I guess if we get into the first bullet point, we can talk about, what unique challenges do male VTubers face in this medium. And, the most common complaint I see from male VTubers and the like is the question, do male VTubers have it harder than females? And I would say that's pretty true on the whole. That I do think male VTubers have it more difficult than females, but it's also important to remember that males do have different strengths than women do, and it's also important to note that just being a female VTuber does not guarantee success either. There are a lot of talented female VTubers out there who either have no viewership either, or they're severely under where I would reckon they should be, essentially. So I guess when
I was going to say,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I was going to say that I believe that female VTubers do have an advantage over us right up until we have to have a disagreement over something. Then usually male VTubers have a bit of an edge.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about, so what do we mean when we say that male VTubers have it harder? So in what ways? So I would say a big one is when you think about the medium as a whole, it's very gynocentric, and it's very big on collaborations, socializing, and networking. So a big example of that is you will see loads of big to medium-sized female VTubers will almost take smaller female VTubers under their wing, or give them loads of opportunities for collaborations, or help them build up their profile. Sometimes it's done for perhaps that VTubers kind of I'm not quite sure how to describe it. It's kind of like what Zentraya does, where it turns it into a part of her branding, maybe, and it's more of a calculated business move. But then, I think when we think about how women, in particular, just generally interact with each other, when you're like, women are they're not always snakes. Sometimes they'll happily, kind of build up and accept into the group a cute little young thing who's just getting started. So it's not uncommon to see like a tiny VTuber get taken under the wing of and collaborate with really big female VTubers, whereas as a man, a lot of these opportunities don't exist for either business relationships or friendships with many of the big successful female VTubers in the space who have a lot of eyes on them. And that kind of comes from the medium's cultural expectations in large part, where there's no male on stream because of it upsets the unicorns, the kachikois, etc. Or again, there are women there are women in this space who genuinely just fucking hate men. But essentially the long of it short is that oftentimes collaborating with men is bad for business. So male VTubers are kind of left to figure it out for themselves, basically. Yeah, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, Armchair, or anything you in that particular strikes out to you.
Well, in terms of just the way that male VTubers have to fit into demographics, I mean, you pretty much hit on all the important points. Most people in the audience for VTubing are going to be men, and most men who watch VTubers are going to be looking for, cute girls doing cute things, something that enhances a feeling of escapism. Occasionally, maybe dabbling into, just men being bros kind of content. But even with that, IRL, well, flesh streamers tend to do that a little bit better. For the most part, they tend to occupy the lion's share of the market for that. So it is kind of a male VTubing is certainly, and I think of it as a niche within a niche.
Yeah, that's a good point you make as well about the bros being bros content being what male audiences tend to gravitate towards most. And yeah, I think that's the big thing. And again, when we talk about how content expectations from men are different and the different strengths that men have relative to women, I do think, particularly for male VTubers, their greatest strength would lie upon their ability to grab a bunch of like-minded other male VTubers and just be crazy wacky bros doing bro shit together, right? As the inverse of cute girls doing cute things, silly little men doing silly little things, right? And I think that's one of the struggles, I suppose, of being a male VTuber, is that it can just be really hard to find a bunch of guys to get that kind of project going. Because I think when we take a look at a lot of male VTubers and we think about why the kind of person who gets into VTubing tend to be more on the totally online, weeb, introverted, not very social, not very normie like, right? They've not got that Twitch shithousery kind of behavior, right? They tend to be more shy and sensitive. So
I was going to say, one of the other unique challenges that I do think is a little bit more specific to being a male VTuber is, I think there is less of a, partially because of the demographics of the audience at VTubing, but I think there is less of a tolerance for male VTubers to not have their shit together, so to speak.
That's an excellent point, actually. You're right. Yeah, I don't think it's just unique to VTubing audiences and the parasocial types. It's something you see in day-to-day life, right? Is that when a woman, when a cute girl, whatever, is just like walks up to your friend group or like a group of guys in an office, just everybody's neck snaps and gives her their full attention. When a woman cries or she's not in the best state emotionally, she gets all the love and support and attention in the world. Whereas when you're a man, people just think you're gross and should fuck off, basically.
Yeah. And it's sort of, how do I say? I find that when it comes to looking for content, I mean, it's a bit of a meme, but it's a meme for a reason. The sort of girl failure aesthetic / brand, I suppose, well, rather cynically, I would refer to it as a sort of almost branding device nowadays, that female VTubers have the option of adopting if they would like to make their persona a bit more quirky or whatever. I don't really see male VTubers doing that. Mostly because, like you said just then, I suspect that if we were to try to get the male version of that in earnest, so to speak, or in a manner that is as visible as some of the examples that we've gotten in the past of female VTubers doing stuff like that, like, for example, posting pictures of moldy dishes or something along those lines around the house, it would just be disgusting rather than endearing.
No, you're right. I actually did on my channel. I did a little test exploring that specific dynamic. When I did my first coffee review of the Phase coffee, that wasn't me being a quirky boy failure. I was genuinely had no idea how to brew a cup of coffee and fucked it up big time. And if I were a woman, definitely I could just release such a video or do a stream as is, and everybody would think it was hilarious, cute, and adorable. that in my attempt to make a simple cup of coffee, I ended up making something that looked a lot like cow shit. But what I was able to do, I think, quite well, was able to twist it into something that would be more appealing to men. So rather than it being more of an oops tee hee, I'm so useless and quirky ooh woo kind of video, what I did was, or kind of leaned into the self-deprecation and kind of the the self-mockery angle, and added a bit of blue collar swearing and a bit of the I'm not quite sure how to describe it. It's kind of like, it's funny for men. It's funny to see a man try to construct something and like fuck it up really badly, right? But what makes it uniquely funny towards men is when they like swear and they throw stuff, and they're throwing a tantrum basically. So I tried to do that route instead, and I think it worked quite well, since the video did quite well. So I think it's like, men, when we think about how successful cute girls doing cute thing is, definitely I think men do have a parallel to that. They can very much do the same thing. It's just trying to figure out, I suppose, the best way of doing that. And again, I think it comes down more towards this sounds really bad. I hope she doesn't hear me say this, but when I think about role model male VTubers, I look towards someone like Tenma in Face Collect, because the relationship Tenma has with her community and the kind of stuff Tenma does,
very bro.
It's very bro coded, isn't it? Right? They're swearing at each other. They're tormenting and teasing her. She's calling them slurs, and she's playing regular games and saying very much man shit. Right? It's very very male coded Tenma. Do you take a look? I think
I never really thought of that before, but now that you pointed it out, I can see that.
Yeah, so it's like, if you're a male VTuber, right, and you're looking for some inspiration on how to behave and conduct yourself, I think Tenma is like an excellent example of someone who kind of bridges that gap between contemporary like male streamer and VTuber, right? I think that's something Face Connect does as quite well as a whole. Is they're like an entry level kind of VTuber corporation with the way many of the talents are.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, they are still very much VTubery VTubers.
Yeah.
So where do you think that the kind of hostility towards male VTubers come from, Armchair? I think for me, it mainly comes from just a lack of respect towards the identity of a male VTuber, and I think that comes from a combination of the number of very successful male VTubers, the pool being quite small, but then also every year we always get like the stories of people coming out as creeps, weirdos, and sex pests. Do you think it's just mostly a respect problem, or do you think there's more to it than that?
I don't know if I don't know if I'd call it a respect problem, to be completely honest. I do think that I think that a lot of it might just be down to things like, and again, I mean this without intending for it to have an inherently negative connotation, but prejudice. Because, like you said, there are a lot of data points that have built up throughout the years of, you try opening up to male content creator in this space, and it tends to go sideways. And when it does go sideways, it is very, very visibly a disaster, because you have things like sex pesting, you have things like just generally uncomfortable. You just have things like generally uncomfortable interactions when you have two people who are perhaps less socially capable interacting with one another in this space. Yeah, and then you have, of course, just basic losing things in translation while speaking to another content creator, that sort of not knowing how to be friends or professionals when you deal with one another. It's very similar to a lot of the struggles that female VTubers articulate in terms of their friendships with other female VTubers, except when you have a combination of men and women, I do find that when it goes bad, it goes worse, I suppose is the way I would put it.
Do you think
And
that?
so I can't really blame people for applying that sense of, pattern recognition, because after all, you get burned once. The cost of repeating that mistake is very, very high. So
Yeah, that's very true. I'm wondering if it's because there's such a small sample of male VTubers who would probably get such opportunities in the first place that makes things worse. I mean, we've had some very big VTubers, I guess, in the last kind of year or so have allegations made against them and have Google Docies, which doesn't help things when it's supposed to be the best of us, quote unquote, are the ones who are the ones getting cancelled. Do you?
The things that frustrate me are how, I suppose, how much time or effort it takes before names get named in terms of people who are supposedly these master predators that are lurking in the space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I can on the one hand, you can obviously sympathise with perhaps the fear and the potential career ramifications if they make these allegations, but then at the same time, the question, the point always is though, is about, well, what about other potential victims, who are going to be subject to that by you not speaking up? And then there's always a convenience as to when they speak up is when 15, 16 victims later, finally someone does it, and then the other 15 come out the woodwork like, well, you knew about this for years, why now?
Yeah, it's more about, it's kind of about, more so about hitting critical mass than actually getting some sort of detail out there.
Do you think that kind of I'm not quite sure how to describe it. It's not culture, but maybe behavioral expectations of the medium, particularly on Twitter, actually is another thing that kind of gets in the way of male VTubers really breaking out. So kind of what I mean by that is that I personally think that definitely, like, especially the Twitter side of things, but there's no singular VTubing community, but I feel like people on VTubing Twitter kind of skew towards not liking people who are kind of confident, loud, abrasive, or are a little bit, toxic. But I don't mean toxic I mean like in the male way, you know what I mean? Kind of like the banterous shithousery kind of bravado kind of way. Like I find that, saying a slur can be like the worst thing in the world, and that in of itself is, cancelable. Or I don't know, I find like being a full red-blooded meat-eating man like disgusts a lot of people in the VTubing kind of medium, and I'm wondering if like fear of being cancelled for making tasteful sexual jokes, you know what I mean? I wonder if that kind of hinders people, that kind of behavior.
To be completely honest, I haven't found that to be the case for me. But then again, I'm also someone who doesn't really. I do make sexual jokes at points, but they are more so crass rather than overtly sexual. Like, I'll make a very crude analogy in order to get a point across that I'm trying to illustrate to my chat, rather than something along the lines of talking about my own sexuality or something along those lines, which is relatively common when it comes to looking at just things that female VTubers do, I guess. But one of the reasons why I don't really think Twitter is, I don't view it as that much of a factor.
Good, I'm glad you said that. Sorry, I'll let you finish the point, but I very much agree. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't really view it as much of a factor in terms of determining what sort of content or what sort of brand identity is viable or non-viable in this space. One thing I found, though, as a sort of, I don't know if this is confirmation bias on my end, but when I look at a lot of the independent male content creators, some of the biggest ones that are in this industry, very often what I end up taking notice of the most is they tend to fill content niches that are sort of almost service oriented, I suppose. Service or skill oriented. Because when I think successful independent male content creators, I think people like Randon, Uwo's Lab, Shindigs, Vedal, And with most of these cases, they're people who provide some sort of service, a specialized skill that they can, demonstrate to their audience, that they can, they embark on these extended projects that they end up
Morning, Pablo.
Building up alongside their audience, or they are someone who is a receptacle of worldly wisdom, such as the case with Randon, I suppose. So
yeah. And all
of those
commentary
things
VTubers.
are. Yeah, well, yeah, that too. Although I don't really view them as being at least that mainstream when it comes to when most people get into this space. I doubt that's the thing that they're aiming to become.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Maybe not. I don't know. I guess yeah, I guess I guess that's kind of fair. It wasn't my personal intent either. Funnily enough, it kind of just happened because I just figured out. I just realized I enjoyed doing it, but then I got successful for doing that rather than streaming games. So I guess it just kind of fall upon your lap sometimes. But yeah, someone says in the chat that Vidal's an interesting VTuber because it's not really him himself as such. It's his AI, right? It's Neurosummer. It's his product. It's his service, really, that he's famous for.
Yeah, but I think a lot of when you're looking at his actual content, then yes, I would agree that it's mostly Neuro. But when you look at the brand that he's built up for himself, he is the single father of EN VTubing. Like he is that's his defining trait. He's just the exhausted, capable but terminally overworked single father. Which is, it's a very appealing image.
Yeah, so essentially it seems to be then that male VTubers at the moment tend to be most successful when they have some kind of specialization, I suppose, something singularly focused kind of content. Yeah.
We just have to be extra autistic.
Exactly. But then it just seems to be weird as well that it is mostly men who are represent that kind of content. They're not the only ones who represent that kind of content, but it does appear to be mostly men as far as I can tell.
When it comes to commentary, I suppose.
I mean, you got people like Rima, even Star as well. And
yeah, because Rima's one of the few that seems to have an incredible degree of longevity when it comes to her ability to do commentary-based content. Because generally what tends to happen when you do this kind of stuff regularly is at some point, based off of precedent, it seems like it is normal to get very burnt out on covering these things over and over and become a little bit disillusioned with this content niche and then sort of, drop out of it or try to pivot into something else.
I guess that's kind of what she's done a little bit, I suppose. But I guess it seems to be like kind of like the how we like hags, we like female hags. It seems to be kind of like a lot of the more successful male VTubers are on the you've got people like I forgot his name now. What's to say some V Shoujo?
Kuro?
Kuro, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, people like Kuro. So you've either got, I would say, young Zoomer men who are very TikTok brained kind of person.
Men who are young and spry.
Young and spryly men, yeah, that's right. Who are all about the 6'7" and yappers and shit like that. or I guess on the other side, people tend to gravitate more towards men who have a bit of age and experience and life experience, work experience, whatever. Perhaps I'm wondering if it's something to do again with the kind of person who watches VTubers. There's an awful lot of sad boys watch VTubers as well, men looking for some kind of purpose or role model or inspiration, and then having these older worldly gentlemen like people like Randon kind of explain life and their own experiences to them. Probably resonates with a lot of male viewers in this space as well, right? I guess people, maybe the maybe male demographics either gravitate towards, if not some of the little bit of the simpery of cute girls doing cute things, and it comes to just finding trying to find themselves, really, like introspection. Like Pippa's really famous for her introspective outlook on things, so it's like, I don't know, that kind of content seems to really resonate with men trying to discover themselves and find the best way forwards, I suppose, in life.
There is also the element of, I suppose, I tend to find that among men there is this sort of, it's an almost primitive, when one of us as cavemen figured out how to use a flint, every one of the rest of us like to gather around the fire just to see how it worked, right? There's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah.
In terms of when you see someone demonstrating how they use a very specialized skill, there is a kind of not necessarily a desire to learn or pick it up for yourself, but just a desire to sort of sit around this sort of communal space watching someone actually use it and develop it and demonstrate exactly what it can do.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about no male on stream? Like, what do you think about unicorns and categories and that kind of business model?
I don't really have much of an opinion on it beyond just that's just part of the industry, I suppose. It's always something that I've sort of accepted as, if you are a male and there are going to be cases where people choose not to collaborate with you because they have a specific demographic that they are catering to in their audience that do not like the fact that do not like the fact that do not like the idea of having men on the same, collaborating with their Oshi on stream, or are simply indifferent to that fact.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always been just an aspect of the industry that I understood coming into it. So I don't think I've ever really developed any sort of feelings one way or another about it. It's almost like sort of, it's almost like asking someone about how they feel about the sun rising every day, I suppose, because it's just this thing that I've taken for granted is going to be here.
I'm very much glad you said that. Actually, you've covered perfectly all the points I kind of wanted to address on this subject as well. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better myself. And I think it is important to say it like that. I think your answer is important for people to hear, because I think sometimes male VTubers who get upset, or they lash out in frustration or anger that they can't get any collabs with either their Oshi or successful female VTubers, is that I sympathize with their position, but they do have to remember that at the end of the day, like, first of all, no one asked them to be a male VTuber. They chose to be here, and if you choose to be here, then there are rules and etiquette that you have to follow at the end of the day, and you can't whine or complain like reality to be any different. But then also you have to remember that at the end of the day, this is a business for many of these VTubers. Like, they live off of the streaming money. They even if it's not very much, maybe it's the only source of income they have, and they don't want to do anything that's bad for business. And unfortunately, collaborating with you is bad for their bottom line. At the end of the day, it could have very serious effects on their career long term, whether it's them collaborating with a male will scare off or piss off a certain chunk of their community who will never come back and stop giving them money. Or again, it's not even necessarily relating to just male on female. It's a case of a couple weeks of constantly bad streams with bad collab partners would potentially just make loads of people not come back because they're fed up of watching you anymore. There's an awful lot of competition out there. In order for people to build up and continue to be more successful and expand, they need to have their finger on the pulse. They need to follow trends, and they need to keep throwing out those banger streams. Otherwise, they could quite easily slip back into irrelevancy. I think it's something that I think a lot of male VTubers who are languishing in that smaller area don't appreciate sometimes, is that for them it's a hobby and something they do on a whimsical kind of basis, casual basis, because they can't take it seriously at present. and I think sometimes they don't appreciate that for these bigger streamers. It's like, no, they need this income. They are taking it very seriously, and you may not be the best collaboration partner for them, particularly as well, because I think that it's really difficult to find a male-female partnership that's actually good, that's actually entertaining. I mean, you have examples such as Tenma and Randon, who are a good duo. You've got Rima and Parrot, who are a good duo. Joel and Giga are an excellent duo as well. Connor and Iron Mouse are examples of good. But then, I don't know, I can think of all the other male and female collaborations, which are quite bad, which aren't very entertaining. And I think, it's because men and women are very different as well. And a lot of female VTubers do skew towards being somewhat cute and funny, whereas I think an awful lot of male VTubers tend to be more of the super hyper-fixated, Train Autismo types, or they like playing first-person shooters or RTS games, right? And so when you've got Escape from Tarkov Autistic wants to collab with someone like, I don't know, Necrolina, for example, right? Like just a very cute, Valley Girl type of person.
That would seem very, very dissonant.
It's not going to work, is it, at the end of the day? It's not going to work. So I think the point is, right, is that men need to realize that if you get ghosted or a female tells you that she doesn't want to collaborate with you, try not to take it personally. It's very rarely is it actually personally. It's more of a I wouldn't mind maybe, but I can't because it's bad for business. And I've had these discussions with female VTubers in the background. I'm not gonna name names, but I have asked both corporate, non-corporate, big independent, and big corporate VTubers for like interviews before, and to my pleasant surprise, like virtually every single one of them has said, I would like to, unfortunately it would make my audience very uncomfortable. Right, so I mean, I think that's something that I think guys need to take into account. It doesn't help your situation. It might be disappointing to hear, but at least you can cope with the fact that it's not necessarily. It's maybe not you, unfortunately. It's just because you're bad for business, sadly.
Hands down, I think the most important piece of advice that you could ever give to males looking to enter this space as a content creator is don't take things personally. And I suppose flip-flopping between viewing this as a job and viewing it as a possibly paying hobby is not, in my opinion at least, not a luxury that we really have.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to, you kind of have to know what exactly you plan on doing with your presence as a content creator. Are you trying to turn this into some sort of semi-profession, or are you just doing this as a hobby? And then understand that you are only going to be able to pursue collaborations or essentially public friendships with other content creators who are in the same lane as you are in that regard. If they are doing it, if they're VTubing as a job and you're only VTubing as a hobby, expect them to prioritize their job over your hobby. Similarly, if you are trying to do this as a job, etc., maybe if you're trying to do this as a job, if you're in that kind of position, then interests may align a bit more readily if you are seeking collab partners who are also doing this as their career. But yeah, it's more so, like you said, when people turn you down for things, it is very rarely, if ever, going to be a case of them having something that they personally dislike about you. Especially if you don't do commentary, because I know that sometimes when it comes to commentary, we do end up roasting people who we have no relation to, so maybe that does prejudice some people against us, which is rather understandable.
Yeah.
But if that's not your niche and that's not what you do, then usually when someone turns you down or ghosts you, whatever, it's usually not something that's intended to be a personal insult, and it's better not taken that way either.
Yeah, it could always be just a funny numbers thing as well. And I think that's something that male VTubers, maybe sometimes don't appreciate, is that, again, it's like, if you want people to like you at the end of the day, it's true for men or women, it's just be popular. Just be popular and people will like you. It's really that simple.
Yep. Yeah. Success commands respect.
Exactly. and the more success you have, the more impressive it is, the more respect you command.
Exactly.
What was I going to say? Oh no, I forgot my point now. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, because actually something I want to get onto is something I find very, I guess this is my own bias speaking, because I'm someone who prefers to be an island. I'm not really big on collaborations usually. But I'm wondering sometimes if VTubers, not necessarily just male VTubers, but all VTubers in general, I do wonder if they place a lot of focus on things that aren't perhaps the most efficient or aren't the most important, namely the importance of collaborations in channel growth. Honestly, I kind of think of, every time I think about the collaboration question, I always think about what's his name, Toaster, saying that, you know, in order for VTubers to grow, and the reason what really holds them back and keeps them stagnant is the fact that they don't collab with other big creators. And I don't know, I'm not sure about that, honestly. I think people really do overestimate the impact on building networks with other people. I wonder if they do.
Say, collabs that allow you to grow do seem like a bit of a win more type of thing when it comes to VTubing.
Perfect way of saying
because if you are already large, very often you are going to have much to gain from collabing with other equally large content creators, and they are going to recognize that the same works vice versa, and that's, you know, both of you end up growing significantly off of a mutually beneficial relationship that way. But when it comes to a larger content creator, you know, when it comes to you being in a position where you are smaller and you're seeking a collab with a larger content creator, putting aside things like brain worms or perhaps trying to, or perhaps worrying about social etiquette or whatever, self-consciousness, etc. Putting all of that aside, it's more so a case where you're kind of, I feel like relying on that as a strategy to grow is not very feasible unless you have something that, realistically speaking, other content creators would really want from you regardless of the size difference in terms of your followings. I'm talking something like actually, funnily enough, a specialized skill, for example. Actually, this isn't a male VTuber thing, but as an example, I'm thinking of what was the name of that? What was the name of that VTuber that started working with HoloLive in order to help them with OBS things in order to make some of their bigger productions, their shows and things like that. For example, the Muppet Puppet Theater thing.
Oh, I don't know about that actually. Does anyone in the chat know who that is? I don't know.
The VTuber that helped Gigi make the spelling bee, for example. Was it Gigi? The one that also helped with the coughing baby show that Gigi did for Fauna.
Hang on, let me see if I can find it on Google.
I can't believe it slipped my mind. Actually, I'll try searching it up on my end as well.
Yeah, okay. Oh, let me check chat again. Anyone know who that is? A VTuber, did you say it is as well?
Yeah. I'm trying to find the source for it. I can't quite remember.
Is it Raya?
Oh yeah, Raya. Yeah, that's her. So yeah, in that particular case, you know, you have a VTuber who has a sizable following, but not like HoloLive size, collabing with, you know, some of the largest VTubers on our side of the industry because she has a specialized skill that people would realistically want to be able to access. Now, obviously, that's not the only reason, but that plus presumably, you know, professionalism, the ability to work really well with many different types of people behind the scenes, that kind of stuff probably makes it a lot easier to grow via collaborations, not in the traditional sense of, two people on stream talking with one another or doing something together, in the sense of collaborations and working on shared projects, etc., and generating a good deal of publicity and content for all parties involved.
Christ, yeah. I wonder what they pay her. I wonder what they pay her for that as well,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Probably a lot, I would guess.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? I don't know. I think it's one of those things though where you could probably like force someone to pay the passion tax, right? Like with people with like game developers who get paid actually complete shit to make an impressive project. I do wonder, but I'll try to avoid saying anything that'll get me sued by Hololive.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I guess like on the subject of, I guess like socializing, particularly that evil platform, that cesspit, that void of villainy and degeneracy that is Twitter. Is I just see a lot of male VTubers take a lot of the shit that gets said on there personally, and they take it seriously. And I think,
I think they just need to switch off the platform and stream more, to be completely blunt.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big thing. Exactly. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. But then also at the same time, it's like, look, if your morale, if your determination is being wavered by the vapid drooling of miserable cunts on the internet, right? It's like, look, man, instead of feeling sorry for yourself or getting upset about it, just show a bit of determination, show a bit of ambition, show a bit of aggression to succeed, and prove them wrong. When these dumb fucking V-whores say this dumb shit about male VTubers, I don't take it personally at all. I mean, on the one hand, right, what you have to remember as well, to give them more credit perhaps than they deserve, they aren't when they talk about male VTubers, they're not actually literally talking about all male VTubers. They're talking about a specific type of male VTuber, which probably isn't you, which hopefully isn't you, right? So
my view on this has always been, if someone wants to do a call out, they better be direct, or I'm not going to be able to notice it, or it's going to be beneath my notice. So it's, I suppose, why prolapse your ego, to put it a little crudely, right? Like, why turn yourself inside out to increase the avenues of attack, some of which may not even be intended for you? So, I suppose one of the things about Twitter that I very frequently observe as being a sort of almost a psychological trap for people who are starting out as content creators is the lure of easy dopamine.
Yes.
Of just that instant gratification of, oh, I've made a banger post, I just need to keep chasing the next one, and I'm going to slowly build up more engagement, more followers, etc., except that doesn't actually usually lead to any sort of profit, CCV change, etc.
And that's the important thing to remember, guys, as well, is it's like, seriously, you post a video on Twitter, right, and it might get like 100,000 quote-unquote views on the Twitter post, but actually like 8 people will actually watch the video, and they'll stop watching after 5 seconds. So there are benefits to V-tweeting, don't get me wrong. V-tweeting obviously has introduced me to Armchair, Legal Mindset, Bagstood, etc. But in terms of my actual channel, it's really not done a lot for me, honestly. So, I mean, you have to, you should treat Twitter literally as an opportunity to, network and build up relationships with other content creators, so that maybe in the future you can do a collaboration or work with them, sure. But treating V-tweeting like being V-tweeting is its own content channel.
Empty calories,
empty calories, right? It's V-tweeters aren't real content creators, and a V-tweeter, a V-tweeter.
I remember in one of Dizzy's membership streams, I think this was either a month ago or a few weeks ago, I ended up asking her a question about why Twitter is so relevant for VTubers and especially corpos. And she said that the most useful part of Twitter was the ability to contact artists or contact professionals that you would like to work with. So in that vein, I tend to find that modeling the way that you use, social media tools or whatever after the way that corporations use them is probably the most effective way, because corporations are under immense pressure to make sure that they are efficient with what they do.
Yeah.
So chances are, if they use a social network in a certain way, that's because it yields the most results most consistently. So if you are to use Twitter, I would view it as, one, an engagement farming tool, not in the sense of like trying to make rage bait to make numbers go up, but rather, every now and again, in order to get your content more exposure, maybe pick up on a topic or use it to farm topics or to get eyes on upcoming streams or whatever. Usually I try to make sure that if I am fishing for a tweet that gets a lot of attention, I try to make sure that I always have a stream link pinned on my profile, so that in the case that people do end up clicking over, they instantly see some sort of content that they can get in the waiting room for. That, or again, like you said, using it as a networking tool, so you're able to go into, you're able to DM people that you might have an interest in working with, or who you feel like you can offer something to business-wise, etc., etc. Or even just, people who make content that you admire, and, if you want to express that in some way, etc., etc.
No, absolutely, you're right. There's a very good tools that can work quite well. Funnily enough, actually, it's I don't know if you heard this story before, but actually, when I released my first video, I directly tagged Kanako Lumi into it, and I was a little bit naughty and I baited her with it, whereas it's like I said something very complimentary about her at first, and then I nestled the link to the video under that comment, and then she retweeted it because I said something nice about her. And then I used that, right, as to try to fish some extra views on the video when I first released it. And
you sly dog.
And it fucking worked as well, by the way. It made the algorithm go haywire, which is great. I was like, fucking got her. I know my Oshi so well. Open up with a compliment. There we go. She'll just retweet it. I know so well. Shit, where was I? Oh no, I forgot my point. But yeah, I guess collaborations I think are more of a win harder button, and I think in the first place you need to be a channel already of some certain size to get those kinds of opportunities in the first place. The problem is that when you're a smaller content creator as well, is that when you collaborate with other guys, there's always the risk that you'll actually lose followers to the other person because your small pool of viewership like them more than they like you. That's something you have to watch out for as well.
I suppose, I don't know if that's ever been something that I'm honestly not sure if that's something that I've ever experienced myself, because when I do collabs, I suppose, actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I've ever done a collab where my collab partner is streaming at the same time as I am. Maybe that plays a role in it, but yeah, I've never noticed my numbers going down after doing a collab, I suppose.
No, I have myself, and just in case they're watching, I'm not bothered at all. By the way, you're free to do what you want. I don't care. But it's like I've noticed that a bunch of regulars who used to show up on my channel have gone to like my collab partners, and we stream at the same time. So I definitely say it does happen. So I'm just saying to people, generally speaking, as well, if you're a small content creator, and you're trying to build yourself up, remember as well that a collab can actually be potentially detrimental. Particularly when you only have like a small handful of viewers that you're desperately trying to, springboard off of, essentially. But what do you think that a lot of VTubers have way too much like dependency on what goes on in Twitter and Twitter drama. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It's amazing how do I say this? Involvement in Twitter drama and or consumption of it is almost always optional. And I do think that if you want to turn something like that into content, and this is albeit, this is admittedly my content niche speaking right now.
Yeah.
But if you want to turn it into content, if you want to, for example, commentate over it or provide what you feel is a sort of novel perspective on something, then by all means go for it. But I don't think but in that case, it's more akin to, I'm trying to think of a suitable analogy in order to illustrate my point. It's more so using Twitter as a place to fish for topics that you bring onto your own stream, rather than allowing Twitter to have any say in what you end up doing on stream. I suppose it's the way that I would put it. And I think that too often people assume that whatever attitudes are espoused on VTuber Twitter are reflective of the attitudes that are going to be espoused by the people in your chat. In reality, that is only the case if you seek to make those two things the same. And usually there is going to be a significant difference between how VTuber Twitter reacts to something and how your audience reacts to something, assuming that you keep those two groups, relatively separate.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point. I think one thing I would personally recommend to new VTubers and people who want to get into it, and this is something I actually have done to a bunch of guys from the Face community who've asked me for advice on how to start being a VTuber. I do think
this is lazy.
not lazy. No, actually, people like people like Demonstrous.
Oh, Demonstrous. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think one of the first pieces of advice I gave to Demonstrous is that it's okay to have your morals and to be open and opinionated on what you think about things that happen on Twitter or in VTubing within reason. But I would say that being a drama tuber, an outright drama tuber though, or a drama and farming engagement person on Twitter is very much a poison chalice, because people love drama, and it's actually, I'd say, a quite realistic and consistent way to get viewers, get subscribers, right? I would say it's not that, depending on how you go about it, it's not exactly the most difficult thing to do. But then I'd say it's also a poison chalice because of the kinds of kind of what it does for your reputation. Drama tubers are radioactive to certain...
You have to... Yeah, there is definitely a stigma against being a drama tuber, again, for an understandable reasons. But on top of that, you have to be very, very careful about not accidentally creating your own content.
Yes, exactly.
One of the few, I suppose... One of the few lines that, if you want to do drama or commentary, one of the few lines that are almost universal to people in this content niche is, you don't try to stir the shit that you are going to end up talking about on stream. You don't try to... Yeah, exactly. Don't try to create your own stories out of nothing by getting your hands dirty and riling people up.
Yeah, don't touch the poo, guys.
At most, yeah, exactly, don't touch the poo. At most, just be an observer. If you want to commentate over something, even if it's something that is, anything that is put into the public, anything that's put into public view is fair game, and up to individual discretion as to whether they want to talk about it or not. But yeah, don't go out of your way to start shit with somebody else so that you have content. Yes. So that is something you're going to have to be very careful about, trying to maintain that layer of separation between you and your commentary and whatever it is you happen to be talking about or observing.
That's right. And again, there are people, VTubers, fans who just indiscriminately hate all and anyone relating to drama, regardless as to the quality or fairness of it as well. So I think it's just important for people to remember that when you do start down that path of commentary or drama VTubing, you've locked in that reputation forever, right? So that kind of
Yeah,
that
you
kind of
have to be
stigma
all
sticks
right
with you.
with. You have to be. Yeah, you have to be all right with wearing that brand, so to speak, in both senses of the word.
Yeah.
Both in terms of the image you build for yourself and the kind of mark that you will now have as a result of your content niche.
And even if you change and do something else, you do decide I'm going to be a contemporary streamer based person and not do that anymore. That stigma
Yeah.
still it never goes away, particularly if you do cover something
Yeah.
that was quite sensitive and then pissed people off.
Yeah. The other thing as well is if you do choose to do commentary or drama or whatever as your content of choice, as your specialization of choice, one of the things that you need to look out for, one of the things that you must be prepared for, is to have a little bit of a rather solitary existence. Because, how do I say? Not only is it difficult to make friends when you do this kind of content, but in the event that you do end up making friends, and especially in the instance where you end up making friends with VTubers that are either part of or may end up joining possible subjects that you may end up talking about or considering talking about, that puts you in an awkward position.
Yeah.
Because now you have to choose between your social obligation or your desire to make content or your need to make content if you're doing it as a job. So you have to be prepared for that to be a possible issue that you may have to deal with when you end up crossing that line. So
yeah, hopefully if you're fair and reasonable,
be very wary.
Yeah, hopefully if you're fair and reasonable and about it, then hopefully the other side as well, your potential friends might be able to, they might not like it, but they can at least respect the fact you were very fair. So there is always that hope, but I wouldn't count on it, particularly with how sensitive, how brainwormy a lot of VTubers can be. They probably won't take it well.
Yeah, and also there's often going to be cases where there's often going to be cases where companies that end up being exploitative, they're not going to wear it on their sleeve from day one in most cases. So perhaps this is, your friend views this as an opportunity of a lifetime, they end up joining, and then later on when it starts to go downhill, you might get the urge to turn it into content in the sense of talking about it, explaining how these things happen, why the early signs are a little concerning, but it might end up it could end up worsening public perception and speeding the decline, and then there's a degree of uncertainty as to how much your content played a role in that kind of decline, etc., etc. Which is it might make for some awkward conversations with a friend in the case that's a possible scenario that could happen.
No, that's very well said. I think when I think about as well going on from giving like VTubers advice, again, this will apply to females as well as males. It's not just a male VTuber thing. So it's like I think one of the most difficult parts about content creation is that kind of opening when you're trying to build an audience, is trying to get noticed in the first place when you have no subscriber base or you have no following already. And I think that kind of the best way to try to try to grind towards being successful is to make YouTube videos, and again with you not just YouTube videos of good interesting subjects that really show off your skills and potentially have a niche that's not covered too much. Is again titles, thumbnails, very very important as well. Like a good thumbnail, a good title can be the difference between 100,000 view video and a 2,000 view video. But yeah, I would say that I think like a lot of young people who didn't grow up during the golden age of YouTube and the internet don't understand kind of like the meta of how to become a big content creator, because they grew up when streaming was like the thing.
Yeah, I got the foundation to my channel's growth. I was able to kickstart it by stealing Parrot's strategy.
Oh,
where
okay.
he would put out an edited video and then he'd do a sort of director's cut style stream talking about how he put it together. So I looked at that and I was like, that's actually a really smart way of doing things, because you put all of your time and effort into creating this sort of finished, polished, edited product, right? And then you put it out, and hopefully it ends up drumming up some sort of attention among the audience. They get, to some degree curious about, what was your thought process behind this? What choices did you make when you were putting this together? Why did you choose this topic? Where does your interest in this come from, etc., etc.? And all of these are aspects of the video making process that you don't usually get to expand on if all you end up doing are edited videos. So you get to you essentially you complement that by tacking on using live streams after the video is put out, after it ends up drumming up some sort of attention. And then you can essentially almost double dip in terms of the process that you went through in order to create that edited product, by explaining how it worked, etc., etc. And then maybe if you get an audience that becomes interested in how you think, that's as good a sort of starting point as any to start going into actual streams.
No, that's good actually. That's actually a really good idea. I hadn't thought of doing that before myself. But I think what I'd say to people as well who maybe listen to that and think like that sounds like a lot of work, or that sounds really difficult. I think one kind of like white pill thing I could tell people is that making like a high quality, well produced, highly thought out, very like just fucking solid tight YouTube videos, like kind of content, it's actually optional. You don't actually have to make a high quality product to become like a really successful content creator. You can produce actually quite like low effort, low produced slop, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, React content is really, really popular.
Yeah,
it goes through cycles, but the algorithm really, really seems to like it on occasion.
So it's like, it's important to remember that there's at least two, maybe Armchair might think of another one, but I think there's at least two things really that you need to consider when you're thinking about when you're thinking about like kind of where you are and what you need to do to really build up your brand. Is that the first thing is obviously that you release somewhat consumable, decent enough content that people will stick around and watch it, because YouTube really takes into account watch times in videos before it pushes it into the algorithm. But then what you also need to remember as well is it's not just about the type or the quality of your content you're putting out. Marketing, putting yourself out there, is also the other element of it. And again, this is where like exciting, interesting, or clickbaity, drama inspiring maybe thumbnails and titles come into it.
That tends to get more like it tends to attract the attention of more people if you do that.
It might seem disgusting and annoying, and you'll see people will regularly complain about like outrageous titles and thumbnails, but guys, seriously, don't try to take the high road.
People click anyway.
They do it anyway. And you know what, these same people who complain about this shit will not click on like a proper just a regular thumbnail.
You can have an artistic thumbnail that is tactful and tasteful, etc., etc. But more often than not, that will be outdone numbers wise by a thumbnail that just attempts to capitalize on big thing that happened, right?
Yeah, it's like if I have to make a documentary on Face Connect, right? If I called the video something like a comprehensive retrospective on the success of Face Connect, like no one would give a fuck.
You don't want to name it like an academic paper, basically.
Exactly, right? Whereas if I said something like these psychotic chicks are like fucking outrageous or something like that, people would be like, oh, okay. But if I just give like a very brief history as to how I guess content creation has been since time immemorial for people who weren't like around or old enough to see it back then. These are what I've noticed as someone who's been watching Let's Plays since the late 90s, back when they were like written on blogs as like a story with screenshots, right? My first ever Let's Play was reading a a Let's Play of System Shock 2 in 1999 on someone's like fucking homepage that they coded for themselves. And kind of the major lessons I've taken from going from that to YouTube to Twitch, etc., is that the most successful creators have always specialized in either one specific thing or multiple things that are in the kind of the same industry. So kind of what I mean by that is, back when Forsen, for example, the streamer, was at the top of his game, he was the Hearthstone guy, right? All he did was stream Hearthstone Rogue at a very high level, and people like Total Biscuit as well. And back when Forsen was at its peak, like 50,000 people, again, this is like going back 12 years ago as well, which is a crazy number when you think about it, like would tune in because they just wanted to watch Forsen stream Hearthstone, because they were Hearthstone players who wanted to get better at the game and, enjoyed the Forsen experience, basically. And then eventually, when Forsen got tired of being the Hearthstone guy and then started to branch out into being a variety streamer, his funny numbers dropped to like 30-40% of what they used to be. And then when he kind of like got away from the trending variety streaming and just did whatever the fuck he wanted, he saw an even further decline. And it was the same thing with Total Biscuit when he became like the Cataclysm beta World of Warcraft streamer expert guy. Again, he'd see colossal amounts of channel growth and viewership, and then when he became like a variety producer guy, again, his funny numbers, went to a much smaller percentage of what they used to be. So essentially what I'm saying is that a lot of VTubers are variety streamers, and what you need to take into account is that when you're a variety streamer, essentially you are turning yourself, you are the driver of the content, basically. You're essentially saying that I am what you're here for at that point. Whereas when you're a specialty streamer, when you do focus in one thing, you can kind of almost at times actually just sit back and let the content, let the thing you're doing kind of take the reins of the stream. So like people watch Escape from Tarkov streamers who essentially say nothing really. They're just fully locked in on the game, but like loads of people will tune in to watch them because they just want to watch high-level gameplay of Escape from Tarkov. So that's just one thing you need to remember when you're considering about what kind of streamer you want to be and what you want to do in this space, is that if you do go the variety route, particularly when you already don't have a following, it's basically, I think, streaming on hard mode. Whereas if you do specialize in one thing first and then build an audience based on that, that's probably the better way to go about things, and is perhaps easier to get you an audience.
Yeah, I think phrasing variety streaming as streaming on hard mode is, I think that's a pretty good way of getting the idea across as to what it's like, because essentially the way that I view it, it's no secret that every streamer needs some degree of charisma. But depending on what you end up streaming, how much charisma you are required to exhibit in order to maintain an audience varies pretty drastically. Variety streaming is by far the type of streaming that is most reliant on the individual streamer having a strong sense of charisma, a unique personality, a distinct personality, all of those things. Whereas if the more specialized your content becomes, the less reliant, I suppose, you are on having that kind of distinct personality or radiating charisma.
Yeah.
So, because people are going to tune in more so for your specialization than, well, you specifically as a person, I suppose. Or as a persona, to be more accurate.
And it's exhausting as well to be like that. Like sometimes you do want to
yeah.
That's why VTubers do just like gaming streams sometimes, because all the other shit they do in the background, it takes, like, you'll be surprised at how long it takes to just arrange a simple like PowerPoint presentation over a subject.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if you actually want to do it well, then it's going to take quite a bit of time.
It takes ages, right? You might tune into your favorite VTuber, corporate VTuber, independent, whatever, and they're just doing like a funny, silly little stream about their hobby, like Digimon, for example, like a Dizzy Digimon stream. And it might take them days to prepare for that. So you'd be surprised, honestly, about how much how much effort it takes to do something that doesn't look like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay. Um. I guess I'm kind of running out of topics now. So let's see.
I mean, that point about VTubers being wait, what was it that you had? VTubers being too nosy?
Yeah, so kind of like, you know,
What?
something, you know, again, you go back to Twitter and you see like a lot of VTubers are just have to insert themselves into every drama. It kind of goes in what we said before, right, about touching the poo, but a lot of VTubers just seem to be obsessed with involving themselves into drama and telling everybody what they think, you know, and what to take away from the situation. And it's like, again, it's like, why? Like, should you be streaming right about now? I don't know. Like, are there any benefits to being like that, right? Like, what are the benefits? Are there any real benefits to being like that?
Actually, I think I finally settled on the analogy that I was fishing for earlier. It's a bit like, you know how crocodiles, right? Like the way that they hunt is they pop onto land, they grab something, and then they drag it back into the water where they're comfortable. They have the advantage, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
They can toss the prey around, dismember it, eat it at their leisure, whatever. It's very. I view Twitter as a very similar thing where. Ideally, what you want if you are looking for a topic from Twitter, you pop out, you grab it, drag it onto your stream. You can treat it however you like while you're on there. That's you in your element. It doesn't really matter. You're in your isolated community. You can enforce through whatever community standards of behavior or whatever, you can enforce a barrier between what ends up being talked about or discussed on your stream versus anywhere else. And then, while the opposite is what you just described, which is going onto Twitter, getting into people's replies, trying to get yourself involved, and then you sort of open yourself up to all sorts of you get trampled over by all sorts of things if you're not careful. And sooner or later, you're gonna lose the die roll, you're gonna lose the coin toss, and you're gonna attract the attention of more people than you bargained for. So.
Yeah, I think that's always like a big thing, guys, as well. It's like, you have to be careful sometimes about attracting attention from the wrong people, like when you're on the internet, particularly in VTubing, which I find tends to have, I don't know, an above average level of attempted or doxing of talents in VTubing. I would caution people to try to be discreet as possible, really, or not join in on like public dog piles or morality, like purity spiraling stuff, regardless of which sides it is, whether it's trans or anti-trans stuff, for example. That tends to be like the hot topic. Is you need to be careful because there are a lot of mental people on both sides who will try to ruin your life because you just said something that they didn't like. So be careful with the attention that you bring to yourself. I think you said this a lot of times as well on yourself on stream, on chair, but if you look at the way that corporate VTubers and the real professional independents conduct themselves on Twitter, right? Look away. Maybe don't look towards people like Bao necessarily, but
see, the thing is, one of the things that I think, if you are going to start out as a content creator, one of the most valuable takeaways you can have is do not try to ape content creators that are significantly bigger than you.
Yeah.
Mostly because they are able to get away with a lot more stuff than you will be able to. Because their audience are sizable enough that they can shrug off any sort of PR hit or making a little bit of a blunder in terms of how they express themselves.
And people will make excuses for them as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They have enough people in their audience that are willing to sort of, white knight and or cope on their behalf.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have that, though, if you are a smaller content creator. It's kind of similar to what I was discussing earlier today when I was talking about Iron Mouse, where Iron Mouse seems to have a tendency where she will attempt to solicit attention from... Well, solicit attention is probably too harsh a way of phrasing it, but she will attempt to play nice and extend olive branches and, invitations, Hogwarts invitations to people who really do not belong in this industry, who don't have, a compatible set of values, set of interests, any desire to try and assimilate or learn anything about the medium. And she will attempt to engage them, or at least condemn people for trying to keep them away. And the thing is, well, this is actually happening on Twitter as we speak right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes it backfires, right? Sometimes you end up alienating too many people who are a part of your industry or who share your medium or whatever, while you also end up accidentally alienating the people who you try to appeal to, etc., etc. But Iron Mouse is going to be fine because her audience is massive, and for the most part, they are one of the most fiercely loyal and, I would argue, overprotective fan bases in the industry. So she will be just fine. Now, if you were a smaller content creator and you tried to do what she did, good luck. Right? That's not going to. You're not going to do very well for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's going to be much more of a. Oh yeah, it's going to be much more of a hit than you're capable of taking.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that larger content creators do that simply are not viable if you are smaller in terms of the size of your following, or in terms of how much energy you're willing to dedicate to trying to make this work as a job, essentially.
No, you're absolutely right. No, I agree with that 100%. And just reminded. I remember actually something we mentioned a little bit back before. What do you think about these like independent VTuber groups that kind of emerge? It doesn't have to specifically be them, right? But people like groups like the Vtards,
things like
and
Vdare or Vtards. Oh, okay. Well, those are pretty different things.
Yeah, different things. But when I say that, I guess I do mean organizations like Vdare as well. But it's like when you've got groups of independent. It's not a real organization. It's just like a group of independent VTubers who've all got together because I assume they share some kind of humor, content style, culture experience,
actually,
whatever.
Now that I think about it, when I think about groups like, for example, Vdare, Beasties, what is Densetsu EXE, they all seem, the ones that immediately come to mind for me are the ones that started off as groups that were under a corpo that then splintered off from them for some reason or other, and now because of that same sort of I guess basement rapport that they built up that has lasted into their indie careers.
Prism
now they tend to Prism, yeah. Now they have that underlying sense of rapport that allows them to be able to interact with one another and essentially be, I suppose, pseudo business partners with one another without too much friction, I would assume, since they're all still together. And the thing is, I don't know, when I look at examples like, for example, Vtards, where people don't have that sort of pre-established foundation of rapport, camaraderie, etc., etc., it doesn't seem to have a great success rate, I suppose.
No, it doesn't. And that's kind of the point I wanted to make, is it's like forming a group, like just getting a VTuber group with like random people who you don't really already have that knowledge that you don't have these solid relationships with already. It's kind of like, what is the group doing for you? Why have you, like, what's the purpose of the group? Like, what are you setting out to achieve? Like,
I feel
what is the group doing for you?
If you're just making a group so that you don't feel lonely, then, I mean, sure, but sooner or later, the obligations you're going to owe to keeping that group intact may be more than you are prepared to uphold. And actually, this is something that I'm curious as to your thoughts about, but
yeah.
What do you think about entering VTubing with the primary purpose of making content versus entering VTubing with the primary purpose of making friends?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm biased on one direction on that. I'm here purely for the love of creating content and trying to entertain and sometimes educate maybe an audience.
I'm much the same. Yeah.
I'm not remotely interested in making friends at all. I mean, that doesn't mean that I'm not open to the idea of making genuine friendships. I am. It's just
they're more so incidental to your journey of making content, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think making friends with the internet or with people on the internet is a good idea. There's just so many things that can go wrong, and
agreed.
And again, like anyone who grew up playing an MMO knows like that loss, that painful loss as well, where you really do like get on and like connect with someone, and then they never log in again. Right? Last online 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But again, it's like when you you don't know who you're transferring like information with at the end of the day, and you don't
Oh
know
yeah.
who the other person is, right? What they're actually
At the
like.
end of the day, it's still, it's still strangers on the internet, and all of the
Yeah.
lessons we were taught about cybersecurity when we were children, they still hold true today, even though those lessons don't seem to be taught anymore at schools nowadays.
No, and I do see people try to defend it and say that it was due to the again, I guess maybe I'm out of touch because I'm 32, right? And when I grew up, we still we didn't have, well, we had Facebook, right? But back in my day, you would still physically meet up in person with friends and go do like touch grass stuff and not just talk to each other on WhatsApp, right? And shit, right? Like back in the day. But I see people these days try to, I think it's coping a little bit and say that actually it's okay to really build up these internet relationships and friendships with people now because they can't do it in real life. And it's like, I don't know, am I just an old man? But I still think that's not a valid defense, really.
I think that's a leftover pathology from lockdowns, I suppose.
Yeah, I
It just
suppose
doesn't
so.
seem like that's a natural way of doing things. But the point that I suppose I was aiming at is, I don't know if the way I'm phrasing this is too harsh, but if you're entering VTubing for the purpose of making friends, you may be entering for the wrong reason.
No, I think that's fair. I'd say very much the same thing. I guess kind of like building on from that is it's like you can do something constructive. If you are in VTubing to like make friends or to socialize, you can turn that into something more constructive. Maybe you go, you know what, I want people to talk to, or I just want to do something to keep myself occupied because I'm lonely or whatever. You can kind of build on from that to then be, kind of like what IMAS did, where it's like, well, you then from that become an entertainer, right? So you kind of start off on that route of trying to find friends, but then you kind of go, well, actually now I want to entertain the people whose attention I have gained. And I think that's like the best way forward, maybe. You kind of like switch back to the other pathway, but you open up, with a different intention.
I wonder if the flipped example of that, no pun intended, would be Fillion then, because she started off basically doing content, I assume. Well, I mean, I guess she was always part of like the VR kind of.
Yeah, the VR chat bros.
She did start off, running amongst the VR crowd, but now she's sort of known as the collab VTuber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. I mean, I know that that guy who's massively underrated. I can't remember his name. Which something. He's a another documentary kind of VTuber guy. He did a documentary on the rise of Fillion, and if I recall, yeah, she kind of like started from the VR thing, and then she like managed to somehow like collab with Mizkif and the big LA Twitch streamers, like did something funny in like VR, like a dating show or something that she was a part of. So I mean, I guess.
I think I remember there was like a clip floating around of Mizkif talking with Fillion about it, the really uncomfortable one.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, I would love to. Just on a quick tangent, I'd love to go on one of those dating shows. Oh God,
really?
I would, but I wouldn't take it seriously. It would be more of a thing of I'd take that opportunity to
shit posting. Yeah,
shit post. Yeah. But no.
Do those dating shows are those even a thing anymore? I don't see them as often. I don't think I haven't seen one in ages.
I don't think they're the meta anymore because I'm pretty sure that they've had the same problems we've had in VTubing, where some of the guys on these shows are actual actual predators kind of thing. So they stopped doing them, I think.
We need some sort of purge, where man, I just wish we could have good things. We need these playgrounds where we can do silly things, and predators are ruining it for everyone.
Guys, don't mix sex and work, guys. I mean, it's really...
Please don't shit where you eat. Don't do that.
Don't do that. It's difficult to say that though, because I know VTubers who said that they actually met like their wives or their girlfriends from like VTubing, and it's like okay, what? but the thing is though, is that tell me how this relationship happened. And it's like, well, they didn't become wives and like girlfriend boyfriend from like content creation, it was, you know, kind of like background chats kind of thing, right? So it wasn't quite the same
like
thing.
They didn't literally build up that affection on stream with one another, I would assume. Yeah, it was mostly just interacting offline, sometimes for things that are completely unrelated to work, I would assume, and then, you know, then you end up building up that kind of affection.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's important to remember as well. Sorry, go on.
I find it like the idea of trying to find a girlfriend or boyfriend out of this industry, I find the idea honestly horrifying, to be completely honest.
I'm way too good for a VTuber, quite frankly. I would never marry I'd never marry a VTuber, man. I'm way too good for that, quite frankly.
I don't quite have the same rationale behind my refusal, but I'm also of the mind of just maybe it's because of my content niche, but just the amount of mental illness that you could possibly stumble on. Like, there are people who are very talented, very well put together, extraordinarily skillful content creators with great amounts of talent. You know, they're brilliant people on stream. And then you hear these horror stories of, you know, what they may be like off stream, and then you kind of like, I could never tell. I could never tell that this person has
people like Rishi.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I could never guess based off of just observing their on-screen persona or whatever. And I'm just thinking, this is an industry where we have some of the most capable pretenders of, you know, in all of entertainment. Not to inflate the importance of VTubing by too much.
I think that's fair, honestly. Sorry,
the thought is immensely daunting to me. The idea that some people go into this and they, or wives or boyfriends or husbands, out of their time spent in this industry, it's wild. I look at something like, for example, Aethel and Nyanners, and I think that is like a one in a million chance of happening. Yeah. The fact that relationship is actually healthy is a miracle in and of itself, based off of the statistics of how this industry is.
I think you're right. Do you think that 2 years ago when I did the Pippa documentary, I made a point in there where I kind of thought that I reckon that in about 4 or 5 years following from that, is that I thought that male VTubers would actually start to become more successful, and they would start to become, for lack of a better term,
mainstream,
just mainstream, just better than female VTubers, honestly. And kind of my rationale,
really,
I did, and kind of my rationale behind that, although I was more touristy at the time, granted, but my rationale on that is that, kind of, particularly when we take a look at the current drama going on with the VTuber Awards and what's being done to iMouse and stuff, I think in a roundabout way that normies and the like would be more willing to give viewership and respect to a male VTuber over a female VTuber is kind of like my rationale. That
sounds like a Faustian bargain if I've ever heard one.
This is the thing that
normies in the fandom, but male VTubers now have a bigger chance.
Exactly. That's exactly my point, right? Because it's like, yes, normies do think, like, look at male VTubers and think like they're gay and retarded as well. But at the end of the day, when you have to consider the fact that the normie hates everything about VTubing, the quirky culture of VTubing, but they aren't averse to watching someone who's good at, you know, playing a particular video game or talking about certain subjects. So like Uwu's Lab, I can certainly see new normies
for sure
loving Uwu's Lab. So that was kind of like my rationale, was that I thought that in the next couple of years we would see, with the great infestation of normies into the space as it becomes more mainstream, and we see normies either make the switch to becoming VTubers, or we see certain VTubers, male VTubers, who are able to capitalize on that normie demographic. We would actually, you know, see that power shift more towards the male VTuber. And kind of, again, building on from that as well, one thing I did wonder is if that would cause a sort of gender-based civil war in VTubing, as the no male on stream VTubers, who are often collab and socialization dependent, then start to discard that unicorn-friendly image so that they can then collab with highly successful male content creators. I'm wondering if that would be a development.
I mean, there are pockets of something that vaguely resembles that happening over on Twitch, because you have, for example, female VTubers that are collabing with people like Maxor, for example. Even though Maxor is not a VTuber, so it's technically not quite a one-to-one with the scenario you just posed. But it is a sort of similar principle, where the more, I suppose, Western a VTuber's audience is, the less, I suppose, the unicorn thing is something that the creator tends to need to worry about, I suppose.
Yeah.
And because Twitch is a very Western-centric culture, I've said this before, but Twitch's streaming culture tends to subsume all other smaller differences among its streamers. Yeah. So that is very, by default, that tends to be quite averse to the, VTubing subculture, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a doomer personally. I mean, I've lived a lot. I've lived long enough and seen enough hobbies ruined that I know that you can gatekeep an entire medium. Eventually, they will get in because
I say this half as a joke, but I wonder if Peanut is merely ahead of the curve.
I think he's ahead of the curve personally. I do very much think he's ahead of the curve. The problem is that you will get naive, well-meaning individuals in your hobby who will open the gates to these people and try to, make them feel accompanied and welcomed. And obviously they will never get it because they don't want to get it, right? They are very staunchly set in their value system, and they will just take... And as they come flooding in, they become a critical mass. So many come in so quickly, you can't educate them or use any kind of force to get them to learn to respect the culture, and then eventually they take over. It's like that great image.
I don't know how close we are to that, though, because right now the person who is insisting on throwing open the gates seems to be getting eviscerated by both sides on the gates. So
at the moment, that's the case, but I think that eventually, in the next couple of years, that will gradually start to change, I reckon, because, again, personally, maybe you disagree, I think that we're starting to see a bit of disillusionment and stagnation among a lot of old established VTubers who are looking for lower resistant ways to either maintain their current levels or keep expanding and gaining influence. I think I'm seeing that a little bit. Maybe it's just me being a bit of a Puritan.
Among which
I think
which demographics?
I think we're seeing that a little bit, because I'm starting to see more and more VTubers start to go down the route of Vtubing and GFE, BFE, and parasocial style ASMR content. I see that as a mark of the end times, personally, but that's just me. Maybe that's me being hyperbolic.
Maybe I was gonna say, is that an industry thing, or is that like our economy is going to shit thing?
Okay. Maybe it is an economy thing. Maybe I'm maybe I'm being hysterical. It could be just economy based. Maybe you're right.
I don't know. Is it? I'm trying to think. Do you view?
What's the question going to be? Do I view?
I was going to say, because do you see that same trend happening in FaZe?
No, I think FaZe is going down a different trajectory. I think what's happening with FaZe Connect is I do think that there is a cultural shift going on with FaZe, but I think it's more of a case of the sad girls who didn't have much of the traditional quote-unquote Japanese VTubing idol kind of talents are now wanting to... how do I describe it? It's like the sad girls are no longer sad, and they and there's a real chance that they can become stage performing idols now, which is what they did want in the first place. So now they're seizing that opportunity to get there, but in doing so, I think they're shedding off some of that old school classic, phase
Some of the
connectedness,
coarseness,
coarseness that made us all highly endeared to them in the first place. So they're basically going from this weird little niche entertainment industry of relatable weirdos to John VTuber, right? John Hololive, like Hololive the Seconds kind of thing a little
bit. I do find it fascinating that FaZe is the closest thing we have on the EN side to, traditional VTubing idols, I suppose. Not definitely very different from Hololive, but similar in the sense that the girls seem to genuinely want to become like idols, and it's not going to be the exact same, but it is something that I wonder, like you said, how much of that coarseness may end up coming off in the process of moving in that direction. Because I don't know if this is just cope on my end, but I don't see all of it being cast off.
I don't see all of it being cast off, because again, I think a big part of the appeal is how open, I guess, and kind of genuine they have been in the way they communicate with fans and what they're like on stream. I don't think that's fake or performative for the most part, but kind of my thoughts on it is, though, and again, this is based on my own experiences as well, is that when you become more successful and when you become more popular and you network with, other people, highly important people in the industry, you start to become very self-conscious and scared about, disappointing them or, looking like a bad person in front of them, right? So, like, I guess in my own experiences, like I used to, I used to make every now and again. I used to make like Holocaust jokes and other shit in my videos, and then when I made the Prison Project video, the managing director of Aegis Link reached out to me and said he loved my Prison Project documentary, and again, a lot of the Prison Project talents themselves loved that video. So now I know I've got their attention and subscriptions, and some of them follow me. I'm like, well, I don't want to make those. I don't want to behave.
No
like
more
that.
Holocaust.
No
jokes.
more Holocaust jokes, right? Because I don't want to. I don't want them to think badly of me, right?
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I do. I found myself going in a rather similar direction with my own content, actually, where. Actually, this isn't even... I don't know if this is something I've even talked about on my own stream, but I feel like my content has kind of gone on a shift over the course of the year and a half that I've been streaming at this point, where initially it was all just kind of almost, I wouldn't say frivolous, but definitely more unrestrained fun, in the sense that everything was new and I had no ability to I had no framework to limit myself when it comes to how, I suppose it was like a sort of unlimited potential in terms of what case studies I could use from the industry to apply what concepts that I learned from my time in university, and it's sort of like trying to assemble a jigsaw puzzle, but you have all of the pieces scattered in front of you and you're just looking for somewhere to start. And over time, it gradually went from simply, the fun of inventing frameworks, trying to come up with different ways of teaching, understanding, applying these theories and concepts, to then using them in a more refined manner to make predictions, make observations about overarching trends in the industry, what things may come to pass, identifying early warning signs for certain outcomes or implosions based off of data that you've built up by looking at past case studies, etc., etc. That was the sort of place where I started emphasizing the importance of building up a set of prejudices that would allow you to preempt when something significant or something negative may end up happening in the industry or whatever. I feel like I've now reached a stage in my content where I wouldn't say the fun is gone from that element of just coming up with theories and predictions or whatever. But there's definitely, I feel like there is more of a weight to things, because we've finished with the sowing stage, and now we're at the reaping stage, where all of the predictions that I make are they're matured to the point where now I can actually evaluate them and go, oh, I was real pessimistic, but I also wasn't wrong. And that it doesn't feel great when that happens. I'd be lying if I said that there was no sense of at least a little bit of satisfaction in terms of a kind of mechanical, albeit satisfaction, where you're kind of like, okay, my instruments are working right. But there's also a sense of, oh, if I was predicting things based off of just pure cynicism and pessimism, and it turns out I'm actually right, and that's it's not, it's kind of it's a little sobering sometimes.
I love that you said that. Actually, I kind of funny enough mirrors me a little bit. Actually, I find that highly relatable. I think I've gone through much of the same thing you have, but I have gone, I guess, in a different direction, I suppose. But no, that was a great listen to. Actually, it feels really validating to some extent. But like for me, it's funny, right? Because I guess a lot of guys here in the chat have seen my first video, right? And to this day, over 2 years later, I still get people going, "Wow, Maulington, you're like fucking Nostradamus with how much you called Niji Sanji and Face Connect." Shit, right? So kind of like you, I love the predictions and the theories, and like analyzing behaviors and trends to make these predictions. Like that is the vast majority of my subscribers do come from 2 VTuber Corporation commentary videos, which were basically prediction type of like analysis videos. The second one I've actually privated. Well, no, I've not. Have I private? I think I've unlisted it. I've not privated it. But I guess where our trajectories differ is that for me, I kind of went down the route where at the end of the day, I'm here primarily because I love VTubing and I'm passionate about the medium and want to share, I guess, my kind of hyperfixation with other people in like a shared fandom and enjoyment and like love of the medium, rather than trying to educate people necessarily. So the problem I run into, what was a struggle for me and why I've shifted my content from what I used to do to where it is now, is that particularly when I made that second video that I've unlisted, I said some stuff. I was dead right. I was 100% right about. I said a bunch of. I called Idol out in that video, and at the same time, I like to use other organizations as an example of how to do things right. And then this, like this VTuber Corporation does things wrong. Here's why. Here's an example of an organization that does things right and why. It's kind of the way I went about it. And the problem is that when you make kind of content like that, people tend to not see it in terms of you trying to be, analytical and helpful, right? It's not a Phase Connect good, Idol bad, because I like Phase Connect more than Idol sucks. It's more of a, well, here's some case studies, here's some examples that help prove my point as to why one's doing well, one wasn't. But it creates this situation where a lot of VTuber fans who are fans of that organization, who I guess I am shitting on as an example of how not to do business, right? They take it personally and they get really upset with it. And then of course there are people who just accuse me of being a facial, right? But it's like, no, genuinely, Face Connect has been doing almost everything right, like almost perfectly. That's why they're in the position they are currently, and why Idol's fucking dead. But my point is
it's difficult because sometimes when you try to give a lesson using case studies, people end up reading the case studies as some sort of dick measuring contest
like
instead of
ball,
what
right?
they're intended to be. Yeah, exactly.
Like but the problem is I'm not here at the end of the day to try to like upset people or piss people off. So I've kind of gone down, even though I don't I'm not sorry for what I've done, but I do kind of regret it because I'm not here to upset fans and I'm not here to piss people off or represent anyone or anything either. I think one thing that really concerns me is like, I don't want people talking about me in the Phase Connect community, whether it's a Discord or on streams. Like, I don't want to be part. I don't consider myself to be part of the community in that way. So I've kind of gone down the route, I suppose, of just doing like lore videos and sharing the love of VTubing rather than doing one thing that I'm doing, rather than doing the predictive stuff now, because it's like I'm just concerned about being seen as something I'm not in a community. I'm just scared about being a representative of a community when I'm definitely not and shouldn't be. And also I just don't want to upset people. Basically, I'm not here to piss people off. I just want to, you know, just share the love of VTubing. But then the problem is that when you're a commentary VTuber, no matter what you say, no matter how you frame it, you're always going to piss people off. So that's kind of how I struggle with it. So I tried to cut down the corporation analysis down. So kind of what I'm doing at the moment is I've got a Dizzy docky coming out soon, and I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm real excited for that one because you've been putting a lot into that.
Yeah, so
what I've seen.
What I'm doing with that is I just have to. You get at some point you have to explain like what some of the bad stuff that happens in other VTuber corporations, but it's more focused on what makes the subject of the documentary, you know, good and how they're unique and how they contribute in the sphere, really, rather than okay, so this organization is good because it does all the things right, whereas this one does all the things shit, right? If you see what I mean there. It's kind of more of here's how Dizzy's leadership and business sense has contributed towards these outcomes. Here's how what Dizzy has done and how her background and shit has had this effect on Phase Connect, and here's how Dizzy in particular is unique in this regard, is the way I've kind of gone about it.
Man, that's such an I feel like that's such an interesting and rarely seen angle to talking about specific talent in corporations.
Yeah, I'm surprised people haven't done it before, you know, I guess. It's like, you know, the nature of VTubing is that we love our talents and, you know, we have our Oshis and shit. And people always speak very highly of their Oshis, like the Love Bugs in particular are always talking about how much they respect Dizzy and what she does for the corporation. So it's like, I'm surprised that we don't see more people just like make videos on how special their Oshi is to them, right? Just a video like, this is a VTuber I really like and here's why they're great, kind of thing.
You know, that does remind me of almost like not quite the same thing, but when people would make, you know, poems or sagas or tales, in other words, to basically try to encapsulate their admiration for like a god or a muse or something like that back in the ancient times. But that's kind of made me think about what my content mostly falls in category of, or what I suppose I'm known for, I guess. I suppose one of the things that I've become known for is I think I said this on stream at some point, but I view myself as like the industry equivalent of like a dog in a forensic team. Because
that's great. I like that.
I feel like one of the things in terms of content that I've become known for, I suppose, is looking at case studies that people have not touched for a while. Basically attempting to go sometimes years back before I came into this industry, because I just want to understand more.
You're okay, Billy. You're okay, Billy.
Just what things were like before I was here.
Yeah. And
see if there's any sort of, you know, I suppose, sifting through the dust to see if there is some sort of indication or sign or a bit of data that can be useful in terms of piecing together some truth or factoid about the way that the industry exists now, or something that could possibly be leveraged into helping to predict the trajectory of the way things may go in the future. And so far, I have not been disappointed. For example, even something as recent as looking into Sundaria has given me a significant amount of... Sundaria was specifically the knowledge that they sold their IPs has given me a significant data point in realizing, for example, how much of the instances where a corporation shut down and simply quote unquote handed off their IPs was actually, you know, a sale that was done but never announced.
Yeah.
That sort of linguistic sleight of hand where it announced, you know, a corporation that's closing goes, our talents deserve to carry on what they've built up, etc., etc., and so they're leaving with their IP without ever saying, you know, they're leaving with their IP, not just because they deserve it, because they're paid for it as well. And it's sort of given me
hey,
like a
Whimsy,
new
how are you doing,
appreciation
Whimsy? Good to see you.
Of how well I suppose it is exactly how I described it just then, which is a data point that I would not have had access to if I had not
Hello, Whimsy's living room.
chosen to undertake the task of trying to make up for lost time in terms of looking into something that people don't tend to talk about a lot anymore, just out of a desire to know.
Yes, I did really enjoy your Sundaria stream, actually. I managed to finish it, the second part 2 last week. And, you know, funny enough, recently Dizzy brought up on stream as Dizzy about her, I think it was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago or so. Actually, funny enough, Dizzy on stream mentioned the fact again that she, you know, her history of getting into VTubing to pay for schooling and stuff. And I was like, I do wonder, I was like, why did she, that's funny timing. Did she watch, I wonder if she watched, you know, your video and then like decided to bring up some old lore about herself again. Because
there's no way.
It's just funny coincidence, but it's like, yeah, I didn't actually know that lore about Dizzy myself. So again, I found that information like really interesting as well. But yeah, I did enjoy your Sundaria, I guess retrospective, I guess you'd call it a little bit. But yeah, I've been wanting to do something similar for Cyberlife actually for quite a while, but it's just been a case of
Cyberlife is such an interesting, it's such an interesting Pandora's box to open.
It's funny
because its ghost rears its head every now and then. One of the things about Sundaria as a topic that made it so that, you know, even though it was like pretty old, I didn't feel too bad about the idea of looking into it, because I knew that if I was going to talk about it, it was very feasible for me to do so without getting into the sort of the more distasteful things to dig up, like speculative, you know, talent, you know, any sort of interpersonal drama or whatever that may or may not have existed between the talents. Like with Sundaria, it was very straightforward. I could purely look at the topic through the lens of things like business direction, brand identity, all of the stuff that I'm familiar with and the stuff that basically I enjoy focusing on anyways.
Yeah.
But with Cyberlife, it genuinely does sound like, based on the way that people talk about it, it genuinely does sound like it would be impossible to talk about it as a topic without touching on interpersonal drama between talents.
It is, unfortunately. It's you could do it, because what essentially did bring Cyberlife down is the same thing that ruins many VTuber corporations: terrible talent management, and mostly, for the most part, primarily just the financials weren't there, quite frankly. That's really what brought it down. But it was accelerated, it wasn't helped by the talents being, you know, well, again, it ties into bad talent management, that the talents having
I suppose so.
And I guess what makes it difficult is that, again, pretty much all of the talents are still around today, right? So it's like, if you do go down that route, you're gonna unfortunately unearth some very unpleasant things about active VTuber. Hence the commentary of VTuber.
Exactly, yeah. The thing about Sundaria that made it, compared to Cyberlife,
and
far
Emma's
more palatable a topic in order to tackle, was namely because, you know, it is very possible, or, you know, when I was looking at the topic, I thought it was very possible to talk about Sundaria as a company without attempting to I suppose, forcibly dig up anything relating to any of the talents that are still active. But it's...
Yeah,
I just don't see a way of doing that with Cyberlife.
No, you can, and the reason why I focus on this stuff is because I genuinely don't like bringing up drama of, you know, falling outs between talents and all that stuff. But the problem is my angle of VTubing analysis, right? Well, I guess my favorite part of it is talking about leadership and the effects that has on business. Basically, that's kind of how I make the majority of my predictions about where a VTuber corporation is going to go, is by looking at the leadership and looking at, well, not just the leadership, but like in terms of like the vision of the CEO and how the talent managers manage the talents and how the organization deals with like drama and, you know, the stuff that could tank their reputation. Is kind of loosely related to PR, I suppose, but it's not just that, but then it's also looking, I think, at the amount of investment as well that the talents are putting into the organization. Particularly we're going massively off topic for a moment, but actually now that I've got you here, actually I want to ask you this question. So
Yeah.
I don't know, actually hang on, let me send you a DM on Discord first before I bring this up, just to check if you're okay. Okay, sorry, yeah, 1 second guys, I just sent Armchair a message.
Actually, I don't mind that. I think I made a tweet about it at some point 2 days ago, so I've it's not like I haven't talked about it already in some capacity at least.
Okay, so basically my point more specifically about this is that for those of you who aren't aware, there's a VTuber corporation called Variance Project, and they have at least 2 VTubers in there who often stream on their, or sometimes stream on their past lives, and one of them got suspended recently for their conduct on one of their past life accounts, where they said some unprofessional stuff about their, I guess, their kind of like funny numbers and situation in the company. And what I'm interested in hearing from you, Armchair, again, looking at VTuber corporations in terms of like leadership and particularly like business and I guess like talent investment into the company, is that I think Variance Project is extremely misguided by allowing its VTubers to actively stream on their past lives in the first place. And I also think that the VTubers themselves are also highly misguided by streaming on their PLs rather than just investing 100% into their company. And the reason why I think like that is because I think that it shows maybe that both Variance Project and the VTubers in question aren't taking their corporation as anywhere near as seriously as they should do, really, because, you know, there's so much competition out there, even just among the VTuber corporations. In order to build a successful VTuber corporation, you need to really develop a culture and a reputation to get people to care not just about an individual talent or two in the company, but then there also needs to be like a company law as a whole, a quick, you know, snappy descriptions that help people easily identify a company, what it's about, and what you can expect from its VTubers.
Like a tagline.
Like a tagline, essentially, yeah. So, I mean, I take a look at stuff like that, and I think that I appreciate from their position, they may be looking at their financials and thinking, you know, if they go back to their PLs, they'll make more money, certainly in the short term. But then I think they're all condemning their corporation long term, if they even care about such a thing, because it's like, right, if you're not putting a 100% investment into the company, you're streaming on a separate account, then it's like, well, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, give you money on your PL and then at the same time like funnel money towards your corporate account. I'm gonna do one or the other, you know, ideally. So again, it comes into that financial problem, and it comes into, I don't think they're really taking it far enough. But I don't know what you think about that kind of dynamic, about letting a VTuber corporation letting talents, you know, actively stream on PL.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Because it's not like there are no cases at all of companies allowing talents to stream on their PL, but usually if a company does, either the PL is something that is non-VTuber related, or it's only very, very occasionally that happens. And these are usually companies that are significantly larger in terms of size and resources than Variance projects. So, like you said, I do find it to be an interesting choice. But yeah, since this is something that I don't actually have a lot of data on, I have no idea how Variance project operates behind the scenes or anything like that. That hasn't really been something that I've really been thinking about or dwelling upon. I've been personally, the thing about the Variance project, recent events surrounding Variance project, the thing that I've been most fascinated by is the question of how do you handle talent suspensions in a company? Because Variance project is one of the few companies that's actually, on the EN side at least, at least in recent memory, that has bothered to come out and say, wholeheartedly, with in a very transparent manner, we suspended a talent, but also didn't present like a laundry list of reasons as to why they did that.
They didn't do a Niji Sanji and publicly humiliate and tar and feather the talent. Yeah, I think on the subject of those suspensions, I would rather they do what Variance Project did than what Niji Sanji did, or does, I suppose you'd say. It's still around. But I really do think that suspensions, generally speaking, just in general, like suspensions really shouldn't happen unless it's a it's a very serious, very, very serious offence. And I don't personally, I don't think that this warranted a suspension. But even if even though they disagree, I really don't think they should have announced it. They should have. They could have just kept it quiet, in my opinion. I do tend to go down the route where they should have sat the talent down first and just had that conversation with them and confirm what your issues with their conduct was, and I promise that they won't do it again, and then just let them go off, and then maybe next time if they do it again, then you go down that route. It's like I don't like this immediate snap to like formal administrative punishment in the form of suspension.
Fair enough. Yeah, the other thing that I was going to say is the thing that I found even more interesting than the fact that Variance Project announced that they were going to be suspending a talent publicly without, providing any sort of reason, was seeing the reactions to it, because people instantly jumped to, okay, this may sound a little hyperbolic. Maybe there's a little bit of hyperbole in how I express this, but people immediately jumped to, oh, this company must be like, there must be something underhanded or shady or exploitative going on here.
Because of what Niji Sanji's done, I reckon is where people come from.
Yeah. But that then leaves an interesting question in my mind, which is, how do you, is there any reason to announce that you are going to do a suspension if that is indeed what you're doing?
Yeah.
Why would a company not just keep it on the down low? Or why would a company even bother announcing it publicly at this rate if this is the response? Because I feel like what has been demonstrated with the Variance Project suspension is that when people complain about stealth suspensions, what they are actually complaining about are just suspensions at all, rather than the manner in which the suspensions are announced. And that is based off of the Variance thing. I feel like any other company that happens to be watching public reaction to that particular announcement may now have been given an example of, okay, so this is what happens if we announce that we are going to suspend one of our talents in the case that we have to do that. And even if we're transparent, even if we hold ourselves back from trying to essentially, as you put it, tar and feather our talent or whatever, there's no winning play here. We might as well just keep it quiet because that's the most painless route possible.
I think suspensions are a mark of weakness, honestly. I think they're basically an admission to your audience that you can be rattled by public perception, basically. Like if you shout and scream and step your feet enough, you can influence company decision making. Whereas I tend to like That's kind of one way I interpret it, and I kind of like the way that Phase Connect deals with most of its drama, because they don't fucking say anything, right? So it's like, so it kind of, I think, sends the message that at the end of the day, they make the decisions internally, and you maybe can influence it, right? I think one thing, for the sake of stability, long term for VTuber corporations, is that they have to be careful not to give their fans too much power, because they will go crazy with it.
Transparency is a meme.
Transparency is a meme, exactly, right? Transparency is a meme. It's good to be open with people, but there's times when you should say what's actually in your mind and what you're thinking, right? I have a lot of opinions on stuff and things, and I say a lot of them. I don't say all of them, because it would get me into an awful lot of trouble, right? So it's
fair,
like, there are times when shutting up is the best.
Same sort of, exactly, and it's the same sort of thing when it comes to managing a company. I would assume, where you don't want to become some sort of open book for your audience, because you want to maintain at least some degree of independence from them. Because while your audience knows what they want, they aren't guaranteed to know how to make what they want better than you do, I suppose.
No, that's right. But I guess if we try to get back on topic for a little bit now, and we frame it back into we go back to male VTubers.
It's such a classic move for us to just segue into talking about corpos, or like a few hours into talking about whatever it is we are currently in the middle of.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's why the two of us here, though, in the first place. Something about VTubing just really tickles us. For me as a theatre kid, I just fucking love everything about it.
Yeah.
But I guess I guess it doesn't even have to be about male VTubers, but male VTubers, female VTubers, whatever. Notice how a lot of like professional, corporate, and sometimes independent VTubers react to a drama that's going on in the sphere that's highly divided and controversial, and like causes that kind of great big civil war between people of different minds, like kind of like how Pippa's handled the peanut drama, right? Where people
just
like,
mute all of the big words.
Just mute it all, right? Conduct yourself with some decorum, right? She's the people who are clambering for Pippa's opinion because she's the based yabbit who has thoughts and all the things, and she's just gone, look guys, I don't give a shit, this is annoying, I'm just gonna keep doing my stream. I feel like that's
such a, I don't know, I feel like the whole based yabbit thing is, I don't know, it's Pippa's based in the same way that she's, I'm trying to think of a good way of encapsulating this. She is I Love Joker 2 based, if that makes sense. Where that is in the literal, not the corrupted, overused parody of the word's definition, but the actual definition of the word, in the sense of expressing how you genuinely feel, even if it costs you socially. Yeah, you don't get more based in saying I love Joker 2, right? Like, I feel like people misunderstand that aspect of Pippa.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, it's like, I always remember that one time. I can't remember exactly what it was. That was a couple years ago, but I think it was like I think she was playing Azure Lane or something, and like chat was spamming sex jokes, and she literally like pulled the car over of the stream, and she was like, "Will you guys shut the fuck up and stop like being a bunch of Redditors? You're really annoying." And then it led to a couple of days of Pippa hates us, Pippa hates, and then everyone was back to normal again. It's just great. Yeah. She's like that. But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, guys, you don't have to have an opinion on things, and I know, like, Twitter...
It's okay to stay out of it if you're not into talking about it, or if you don't see any value in joining in.
Yeah, it's like, I think spending too much time on Twitter almost, like, facilitates toxic, destructive behaviors and attitudes that will have potentially long-term negative consequences on your reputation and your channel, right? Because what VTubing Twitter loves to do is like fucking one up themselves about who can react the most over the top to dramas and shit, right? Like I
Yeah,
understand,
it's
and I'm
kind
very
of like escalating pantomime.
escalating pantomime. Yeah, it's like I understand exactly why people have a problem with like what Iron Mouse is doing in the current drama and shit like that. Like I get it, the criticism is deserved, and I do think as well that she is misguided in doing what she's doing. But then it's kind of gone away from that, and now people are going, well, actually, hang on a minute. Like, what the fuck has Iron Mouse actually ever done for VTubing? Like, why do we like this woman? And it's like, what a fucking, like, seriously? Are we going there? Like, what the fuck? Are you a fucking tourist? Are you new here? What do you mean? Right? Like, that's going way too far now. Like, come on, relax. This is the thing about social media, is it whips people up into a fucking frenzy, and you find yourself surrounded by other crazies who are whipped up into a frenzy, and then you say or do shit you can't take back, right? Which you need to be mindful of, basically.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, but do you think? I'm wondering. Do you think that male VTubers, I guess my problem is by saying this. Actually, I was going to say, do you think that male VTubers can kind of salvage and like rebuild their reputation as like a serious group identity?
I don't think so. I don't think as I feel like as an identity group, that ship has kind of sailed. But yeah. I think to be completely honest, I feel like if you do want to be a male VTuber, you kind of have to set to build something up individually, just for yourself as one person.
I agree.
Rather than hoping that the identity group manages to rehabilitate its image so that you can hopefully have the benefit of some sort of, have the benefit of people judging you more gently because of the identity group you belong to. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
because I don't think it's possible.
And what I would say to people is that you shouldn't view yourself as being in like an identity group of a male VTuber as such in the first place. You should very much look at yourself as an individual and a content creator. Kind of like I don't.
That's why I found the snivelings about Bao and Co are so hostile towards males, and it makes me so intimidated at the idea of becoming a male VTuber. That's why I found that to be so pathetic.
It's pathetic
because just you're an individual. You don't. Maybe some people are gonna define you by your identity group, but it's not like those people are gonna watch you anyways. So you don't really lose anything.
Yeah, it's like being a male VTuber is like it's essentially like you essentially debut with a Google Docky or like a minor Google Docky already done you, basically. So that's kind of like the expectation.
I suppose that's one way. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Yeah,
you're a male VTuber. You're basically you're debuting with a minor Google Docky done against you. So at that point, you have to come into this space with realistic expectations, and part of those realistic expectations is that you need to understand that people aren't going to necessarily respect you, or they're going to assume that you're shit and that you suck and that they don't want to watch you, right? So that's where the lack of respect and hostility comes in. But what you need to remember, guys, is that there are plenty of people out there who will say, I hate male VTubers. Male VTubers are a joke. I don't like watching them. And you go, well, what about Randon? And they go, oh, wait, I like Randon. And you go, oh, okay. What about Hollow Stars? And I like this one person from Hollow Stars. Oh, okay, look, we found 2 male VTubers you do like. What about Uwuslab? Oh yeah, I love Uwuslab. There we go. So they don't actually hate all male VTubers. There's just this stigma, right? There's just prejudice, like you said at the beginning of the stream, about the identity
it's kind of like,
a mainstream VTuber.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I don't like this identity group, but I will make exceptions if I see someone that is worth it, I suppose. It seems to be the way that most people who have that particular mindset go about things.
Yeah, and personally, I actually really enjoy the challenge of being a content creator in a space where I am seen with like that prejudice, right? I don't know, personally, it just tickles my male, ape brain desire to compete and, fight, basically. So that's something I would maybe try to recommend to guys is that, treat it like a challenge and try to have fun in proving people wrong. And if you can't have fun, then use spite. I love using spite as a mechanism to inspire me to do things personally.
In the absence of passion, vitriol will suffice.
Oh, that's beautifully. Love it. I love that quote. I'm gonna steal that. Yeah.
I find it's very similar with me and being a drama tuber, I suppose, because I've one of the things I first noticed when I entered this part of this sort of content niche, and I ended up basically settling in, is I saw that a lot of other people who share my content niche, even if they have, some of them have more similar approaches towards making commentary content as I do, some of them more different, but a lot of them seem to really, really despise the label of drama tuber.
Yeah, I do.
Which, fair enough. But like, it's sort of like one of those things where it's not really a label that I've ever tried to consciously resist, because of the fact that, well, I mean, I have like an entire stream basically like, trying to define it in like more concrete terms, but I sort of view it as a kind of filter in and of itself, where people are going to understand if that's the label that you have attached to you and they go into your content, they have an expectation as to what it's going to be, right? Often it's going to be some attempt at blowing things out of proportion, or trying to make mountains out of molehills, or essentially peddle like VT rats or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I do take a pleasure in sort of carving out a little niche for myself within that definition, where my content isn't really anything that falls in line with any of those tropes. And it's nice because people who basically don't have the attention span to I suppose sit through the early stages of my content.
I love how you
whenever I do like a stream or something. Yeah, people don't have the attention span to actually like see what it is I'm doing or saying. They're not gonna bother, and that's fine. But the ones that do they're the only ones that I'm actually interested in keeping around.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think the problem is I find that the word drama tuber is used like wrongly. Like people don't actually, I think, really understand what drama tuber is. When I think of drama tuber, I think of a Keemstar type of person. I think a person
Keemstar,
who inserts themselves into drama and escalate things and tries to like
enough.
act, like the what's the word, like the stage hand who's the the lion tamer who's trying to. I can't think of the word, like the circus master, basically, right?
Yeah.
And I think like people, news tubers, and people who try to like deconstruct and analyze why things go wrong, and like the benefits of, who try to just deconstruct the situation, unfairly get lumped into this idea that they're just trying to stir drama or cause problems, basically, which is unfair. That's not what that is whatsoever. I think that's a very unfair definition to give to people. It's good to have people who do talk about issues like Twitter drama or how VTuber corporations collapse, because it genuinely does surprise and shock me. But it's like people do genuinely like take learning and information away from this when it seems so like extremely straightforward and simple to me, right? Like when you if you were to talk about for example how Niji Sanji's public Taran fairing graduation suspension kind of stuff works, there are people who genuinely don't understand why doing such a thing would have serious long-term implications, like negative effects on a company. And it's like, wow, really? Okay. I don't know, I guess it's like the kind of commentary curse I find personally, is that I see that people say stuff that I find to be like really straightforward and obvious and don't need to be said, but people take a lot away from it. So it's like, okay.
That's how I felt when I saw like startup companies advertising themselves on the basis of, we aren't going to exploit our talents. I'm sort of sitting there going like, no shit, Sherlock. What do you mean?
Shit, good. Okay, good. That's the bare minimum, yeah. Hello.
Pat on the back for effort. Like,
we're the VTuber Corporation, bastard McShitfaces, and if you want to join for us, you will be sexually assaulted no less than 5 times a day, and we will take 90% of your income.
Yeah, like, hello. It's. What exactly are we? What are we actually selling about ourselves here? That's.
Hello, we're a new VTuber corporation. We promise we won't rape you. It's like, what?
Okay. Like, I would hope not. Like, hello.
I would hope not, but no. It's like it's not about what's said; it's about what's implied when you come out that way. Because again, it looks like you're not serious.
Yeah,
You're not serious.
yeah.
You're insecure. And
It looks like you're making a shit post,
Yeah.
basically. Because at this point, it's with how much of a V Shoujo was beyond parody in terms of all of the stuff that came out about the way they operated behind the scenes. And at this point, like, trying to emulate their same rhetorical style that they used in their marketing, like, it has the aesthetic of parody now.
Yeah, I think Dragon Lord here makes a very, very good point. Sometimes an obvious insight can actually be more revealing than a complex one, which I think is fair. I definitely say I tend to like overly complicate quite simple issues sometimes. So I think that's absolutely a fair comment to make. Yeah. Talent freedom, my ass. Yeah, I've said this to you before, but that talent freedom is one of those things that I find really annoying and memeing like transparency. Right? It's like talent freedom, apparently, in the perspective of many people, is just not like micromanaging,
just not doing anything
in the way. Yeah. Basically, it's like what? That's just. And at the end, I'm trying to get back on topic, but it always annoys me on a rant about this. At the end of the day, if you're a VTuber corporation, right, you're recruiting talents because assumably you have faith in them that they're a highly entertaining individual who is capable by themselves of not entirely by themselves, but you can help mold and develop them into an entertainer who can attract a big audience who will spend shitloads of money on your shit poor quality merchandise, right? So if you hire a talent but then you're constantly in their way and micromanaging everything they do and don't give them you keep them on a very tight leash, then why the fuck did you hire them in the first place if you've got no confidence in them? Honestly,
exactly. Yeah.
What? Oh, actually, I guess we can kind of segue into male VTuber corporations. Actually, what do you know anything about First Stage Productions? Do you know anything about those guys? If I say that,
First Stage Productions. I'm trying to remember where I've heard that name before. Sorry, let me just jog my memory. I do remember hearing.
Oh, that's funny. Adamo, that's fucking hilarious.
First Stage Productions.
I think they debuted. Or was it a year ago?
Yeah. Okay, I think I remember. Yeah, this is this is a reality company, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep. I did consider applying to them at one point last year. I did think about doing it. But
what stopped you?
I think the problem is, right, it's like, let's say I am successful and I'm in a VTuber corporation armchair. Given my language and the way I behave, do you think I'm corporate material? Yes or no?
Yeah, fair enough.
Now, could I behave myself? Yes, I could. I could
see the rigidity becoming a little stifling.
Yes,
with a little bit of time.
That's right. Like, that's the thing. I could behave myself, but then it would take away what I think are many of the best parts of my on-screen entertainment, right? I think it's a problem. But anyway, anyway, yeah, I'm just wondering, right? It tends to be that a lot of male VTubers in corporations gravitate towards the fujoshi market. I'm just wondering if there's anything maybe that. I was just wondering what the recipe is for being a very successful like male VTuber or even male VTuber generation in a VTubing corporation. I think a lot of people, particularly Niji Sanji, now have doubled down on deep-voiced fujoshi baiting. Like this guy in the chat says, "Hello, it's me, the male successful VTuber. I'll speak loudly with a raspy male voice and a southern accent, reacting to Zoomer Instagram reels so the teens like me. Buy my supplements, buy my coffee."
I think this might be unfair, but Corpse Husband was a perfectly fine creator when he was popular, but I think the effect that he had on popular culture and specifically the tastes of teenage girls around the world has been an overall disaster for the human race.
Oh my god, yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
It's I think I don't know. I feel like catering to the Fujoshi market is.
I think it's short-sighted.
If you really want an emergency an emergency cash flow injection from C, then like that's like the default thing that you do, I would assume.
Yeah,
because it's very much like a I really want Chinese fans, or I really want, like, you know, the Fujoshis from Southeast Asia to gravitate towards my brand, etc., etc., etc.
The Vox
like
strategy.
Yeah, like there is a very specific market that is very, I would say, like, relatively lucrative.
High risk, high rewards.
Catering to them. Yeah, exactly. Maybe you attract. You need to get the ratio of whale to schizo correct. When you do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like if you're a company, then do you feel like being in a company would make that easier, or like better or worse of a deal to try and, like, if that was your default strategy? Does it make it more or less effective, do you reckon?
Good. I think more, honestly. I do think it's more because I think it depends, really. I think it's always a coin toss, because joining a corporation doesn't always necessarily mean that you will have any kind of momentum when you debut. But I do think that when we take a look at the rise of people like Clara or Kiri Kilovolts, even though, you know, the two of them debuted in small VTuber corporations at the time, but the two of them were able to carve a lot of success really quickly because of how good they were at engaging and doing their niche. So I would say that I think that a VTuber corporation would be the best way to go about things, because of that potential momentum and that kind of initial marketing exposure kind of cycle would help you, you know, springboard to becoming a well-known Fujoshi husky voice microphone man, I suppose.
That would make sense, yeah.
I don't know of any, like, independent male VTubers who are, like, massive with the Fujoshis, are doing that kind of, like, ASMR stuff. But then obviously I don't go searching for this content. It always seems to be corporate.
Wasn't
VTubers.
there was Shoto someone who used to do that?
Oh yeah, Shoto. Oh god, I've forgotten about Shoto. I'm not sure. No, I think it's slightly different for Shoto. He didn't. Well, yeah, I guess he did Fujoshi bait with Vox Akuma, but then it's like, I think Shoto. I don't know. I don't want to say this authoritatively because I can barely remember it now, but I'm pretty sure the way it worked is that Vox was by far the dominant partner with Shoto, and then what happened is that Vox's Fujos latched onto Shoto, and then they loved the two of them getting together. I think it's what it is. But yeah, Shoto did though, on his own merits, become quite a popular male VTuber by accumulating a Fujoshi audience. But then I do wonder, in Shoto's case, he's one of the earliest male VTubers and was able to collaborate and become friends with a lot of the early EN independent creators though. So I don't think it's a fair comparison, because the likelihood of that happening these days as a new independent isn't the same as what it was back then, when the VTuber quote-unquote community was much smaller, right? Because back in the day, Vox was in with Giga, Girl DM, Niji Sanji and stuff, right? So I think it's a bit different in his case. Hey Ross, thank you very much for the $2, buddy. Hello, my favorite male VTuber. But I think,
do you reckon there's a sort of untapped market for male VTubers out there, similar to the Fujoshi market?
Not similar to the Fujoshi market, actually. I've had an idea in my head for years, which is what actually the real reason why I was thinking about joining a VTuber corporation, is that I reckon the most successful formula for male VTubers in general, but particularly for a male VTuber generational corporation, is to essentially try to emulate the success of early Rooster Teeth, particularly their Achievement Hunter / Let's Play channel. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about there when I say the Rooster Teeth Achievement Hunter Let's Play kind of?
I have not watched Rooster Teeth.
Okay, yeah, it's difficult, I guess, to try to describe it. But if I were to put it in the simplest terms, back in the golden age of Rooster Teeth, like before Ruby and stuff, and after Red versus Blue, their biggest kind of branding was a off channel called Achievement Hunter, and kind of like an offshoot of that was called Let's Play. And basically what it was is they had a group of about 3 younger guys in their mid-20s, and a group of, well, they're all the part of the same one group, but they were split in half. Half of them were about guys in their mid-20s, the other half they were called the lads, and then you had the other half of the group called the gents, who were older gentlemen who were like aged 40 and older. And then what they would do is they would always get together, and they would get together into groups of 1, so you'd have one-on-one, or they'd split into groups by age, and they would do stuff like Grand Theft Auto Cops versus Robbers. They would do like elaborate Minecraft scenarios, like competitions, challenges, etc. Basically, they were I would say the gold standard of bros being bros kind of content. And what, in addition to like elaborate kind of Minecraft scenarios that they would build themselves as well, and they would even do streams where they would like show themselves, where they would stream themselves, make like building the scenario in Minecraft, and then talk about what the challenge is going to be when it's ready for next week, which is quite interesting, right? So, but what they were very good at doing is capitalizing on the silly men being silly men, the bros being bros market. And I think that there is a potential for a sufficiently motivated male VTuber generation to essentially try to copy that formula, where you have a bunch of, you know, rowdy, loud, funny lads who have good chemistry with each other, you know, horseplay, fuck around, you know, grief and banter with each other, whilst, you know, doing competitive gaming basically. And then when they're not doing like these big elaborate, you know, scenarios or projects in multiplayer games or in Minecraft and stuff, then like kind of the low effort, the kind of laid back content they do, much like VTubers, they'll just do like a simple one-on-one gaming session, or they will like hunt achievements in Xbox Live games. So they'll produce shorts or videos on how to get this really hard achievement in a certain video game. And I think that's kind of a missing demographic, like a missing strategy amongst the male VTubers that I think would be really successful if you try to have that in your company, right? But the most difficult part of forming such a team is that you do need a team of people who can riff off of each other. So kind of the way I'd go about that as a company would be, I would find the first person would be like the leader of the generation, and you hire the leader of the generation with this vision in isolation. And then what happens is that the leader, in combination, like in assistance with the VTuber Corporation, would then deliberately pick his all-star team of people to join that team, right? So rather than having open auditions, it's more of you reach out to individuals and ask, would you like to join, you know, this team of content creators? And the object would be to do this project, basically, is how I'd go about things.
Huh. So sort of, would you imagine it as a sort of mix between sort of like taskmaster and sidemen?
Yes, actually, yeah, that'd be a good way of saying it. Yeah, so it's kind of like it's that initial stage would be where most of the challenges come from. But it's like you essentially you're grabbing like an all-star team of content creators who you know would work well together in the team, and then you kind of, I guess, kind of like the long-term aspirations of such a project would be to have like 3D, kind of like more 3D shenanigans as like an inverse to HoloLive. So instead of having the more idol style 3D concerts where like they're dressed up in their swimsuits, you know, and smashing watermelons with hammers and shit, you would have like either, do you have like in Australia, do you have these kind of comedy game shows like have you ever heard of Mock the Week before?
Yes.
Yeah, you would have like instead of like doing idol stuff, the men would be like in charge of the entertainment side of the business. So they would have you would have
actually
like Mock the Week and all that shit, basically.
I think we already have a kind of example of that in Hollow Stars JP,
I've
because I
not
think
actually
they do
watched them.
similar things to that.
Oh, do
I
they?
know for a fact that I don't know if this is something that was organized. I don't know if there are examples of this organized by Hollow Stars JP itself, but I know that one of the members, Roberu, he has done streams in the past or collabs in the past where he has joined game shows that are hosted by talents from other corporations or indies that happen to have quite a few connections and associations with other creators from various different parts of the JP Corpo and indie sphere. So I do think that there are instances of what you just described that are already in the industry, but it is more so on the JP side of things, where Vtuber culture is a lot more mainstream and it's in a more developed state than it is over here.
Oh, no, thank you for. I've never watched Hollow Stars Japan before, so I'll have to check that out if they do that kind of stuff. That sounds fun. That's exactly what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for in male VTubers, funny enough. Yeah, I think, like, kind of going back before what I said about where I think a male VTuber's greatest strength tends to lie around, like, working together in a team with like-minded male VTubers. I always think of stuff like how successful Only Plays has been as well, where you have, like, one guy playing the game, and then you've got like his buddies on the couch, you know, like throwing jokes and, you know, making comments, and then you kind of like switch it around. And it's more difficult to do that with VTubers, right? Because you have to decide, oh, who's going to be the one, whose channel is it going to be on, you know? And it's like, for consistency's sake, it has to stay on the same channel, really, each part ideally. But then maybe you could, you know, flip it. So like the next series, it goes to a different person's channel. But then it's like, is that fair? Because what if this series does very well and this one doesn't, and then there's like a monetary problem? I don't know. Maybe you can get around that by splitting the income on that channel equally to all participants or something. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I think I still think there's a lot of scope for corporate male VTubers to expand. And I guess kind of like in the Western sphere, maybe they need to learn lessons from Hollow Stars Japan then and try to imitate that. We just need a VTuber corporation who is, I suppose, ready to take that risk and has faith in, you know, the boys, a group of boys to do that. And I think that's where the major challenges do come in, is the opportunity cost of such an endeavor, right? Because it's like, well, I could spend $2 million on this generation of cute girls who I know for a fact are going to average, you know, 1,000 whatever CCV each and get to around about 40k subs, whatever. Or I could, you know, invest that same amount of money into a male VTuber generation and potentially piss off and scare off all my unicorns and gachikois, and it could be a complete disaster. Or it could go fantastically. We don't know. But there's like no reason for anyone to take that risk, I suppose, because that could quite easily lead to the death of a VTuber corporation, particularly for FaZe Connect as well. I think that would definitely like kill FaZe Connect if they had a male VTuber generation. But at the same time, I'd love to have a male FaZe generation, because when you think about the culture of FaZe, a bunch of boys in that kind of with that kind of culture, I think that would be great.
Ooh. I don't know. I maybe I've become too resistant to that idea. I don't know. I feel like I don't know because of. I don't know if that would fit in with FaZe, to be completely honest. I feel like FaZe right now has been built specifically to be an environment that functions primarily because of the fact that all of the talents are women.
Yeah, that's true. I think the only feasible way that would work is you have it like the Hollow Star situation, where you separate them into like an off branch. But even then, that's
like a totally different branch. Oh yeah, for sure. Because I assume that would eat up like double the resources if you wanted to make sure that it doesn't just wither and die instantly.
Yeah, you need to find a male VTuber who's really good at concocting unhinged hypotheticals like Zach and Chris. Yeah. Have you ever watched Only Plays Armchair?
Sorry? Only Plays. I think I may have come across like one or two videos in the past, but for the most part, I don't think so.
I just wanted to know that because I just wanted to get your opinion on something. There's like one hypothetical that they mentioned like probably about 5-6 years ago, but people still bring it up now because it's such a widely debated like topic. So one guy said, if you had a little clone of like a little tiny clone of Hitler, would you torture it? And then like, oh, hang on 1 second, fire alarm's going off. 1 second.
No problem. Sumanite, to answer your question from earlier, I have not seen Game Grumps. Hold on, let me check. You guys are saying face clippers are super entertaining already. That's true. That's true. Face clippers are the secret male generation of phase. V Brats was, I think that was the name that Necro came up with. That's such a funny arc of the that's such a funny arc of the phase clipper lolification arc. Typical Brit setting his house on fire. True. Phase clippers are lazy clipper. Yeah. Actually, hold on. I'm trying to remember because last time when Lazy had Tachi on his stream. So for those who don't know, Tachi is Sheena's editor, and I think Tachi said while he was on Lazy's stream something about owing some sort of ASMR audio, although I forget the specifics of what exactly it was.
He did ASMR.
Yeah, Yaoi ASMR. Wait, was this... Okay, I know that Lazy had promised that if Iori asked, he would owe a Yaoi ASMR. But I think there was one collab where he was with Tachi, and I think Tachi also said something along the lines of he promised at some point earlier on in his Clipper journey that if he reached a certain goal, which he did end up reaching, that he was going to do something along the lines of like an ASMR thing or whatever. I forget exactly what it was, but I do remember he mentioned something like that on Lazy's stream.
He did, yeah. I'm really looking forward to like the face clip to VTuber arcs that are going on.
It's such a funny gag. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah. It's great. I do really well. I'm really proud of Lazy. He's a good man. I hope to see it. I hope to see it continue. I did say to him like months ago that I genuinely, unironically like watch Lazy a lot because he's actually a really funny guy. I really like Lazy. But
Amen.
To talk about the hypothetical, this is peak bro science, right, from Only Plays. But the scenario is, if you had a little tiny clone of Hitler, would you torture it? Is what the hypothetical was. And then Oni's friend, like Zach, immediately says, well, has the clone done anything? And it's like, well, no, but it's still Hitler. And I'm like, yeah, but has the clone done anything bad? No, but it's still a little tiny clone of Adolf Hitler. Then no, I wouldn't torture it because it hasn't done anything. But it's like, he's still a bad guy though because it's a little clone of Hitler. So it still has all of Hitler's thoughts and memories, right, and opinions. And they're like, no, I wouldn't do anything to it because the clone's done nothing wrong so far. So it's like, would you torture a little clone of Hitler? Yes or no?
I don't think I would. Because it's tiny. Surely you can find better uses for it than torture.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true as well.
That's the Chinese in me speaking.
So you wouldn't re-educate him then, aren't you?
No, I'd put him in a factory instead.
I wonder what you could do with a little fridge, tiny clones. Then I suppose you get them to make like artisan watches. I suppose.
Yeah, I could turn them into like Christmas elves for hire.
Christmas elves for hire, yeah. But yeah, I guess I'm out of male VTuber related stuff to talk about at this point. I think we've tangented off too much. Was there anything you wanted to, anything else that you kind of think about, wanted to get off your chest about the male VTubing experience, Armchair?
I can't really. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything off the top of my head. Generally speaking, if you are a male VTuber, so long as you're not a weirdo, generally, I don't think there's going to be any issue if you are approaching somebody for some sort of If, for example, you want to get a survey done or whatever. Oh,
Mhm.
actually, no. This was something else. Um, I have for a while now been tossing up the idea of trying to come up with some sort of survey or questionnaire that is aimed at sussing out how much of the industry's current state of existence, the practices that are viable, etc.,
Yeah.
can be attributed to the sexual demographics of the way that things exist.
Right.
Like how many corporate practices are only viable in this industry because most of the talents are female, or because most of the audience is male. That's something
Yeah.
I've been curious about for a long time, and I've also been very curious about how or whether there are certain ideological rifts in terms of the way that people think about things in this industry that are divided up by sex.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've been tossing around in my head for a while. So at some point in the future, when I do have something more concrete, I don't remember if I've asked you this before in DMs, or if I haven't, because I think I've been looking for people to sort of help me with this task, where
Yeah.
if I come up with a bunch of questions that may hopefully be a little revealing as to how people conceive of things in this industry, I was wondering if you would be willing for me to bounce those ideas off of you.
Oh, I fucking love giving my opinions on anything and everything relating to this medium armchair. Please do.
All right, I look forward to it then.
Good. So, yeah, I think, guys, I guess we kind of end this by saying, are male VTubers destined to be a joke? Definitely not. No, you can absolutely be successful, and you don't require to be a Fujoshi baser or have this ridiculously expensive, like highly detailed model. Again, this is the same towards females as well. Although maybe having a very fancy model might be more success. Maybe female VTubers might get more mileage out of it than male ones. But you know, at the end of the day, your content, if it's actually like worthwhile and worth consuming, will speak for itself by and by large. I've got one model that cost me like over £2,000 to make, and then I've got this $50 chibi that took 2 days to make. Do you know which one people prefer? They prefer this one over the hyper detailed anime boy one, right? So I mean, don't worry about the model. I'd say as well, male or female, don't obsess about having the perfect debut unless you've already got some kind of following. No one gives a fuck, and no one's going to watch it, and everyone's going to forget it in like 5 minutes anyway, if anyone even does turn up. Seriously, it's more important to be a engaging content creator than do these fancy gimmicks, right? That don't get me wrong, right? A debut can be fun if you want to have a debut. Absolutely, go ahead and do it. Just don't think that your career is going to be make or break on a debut. It's not, particularly when you're just starting out.
This was a point that Pippa actually talked about in the past, but
yeah,
the traditional debuts may not be for everyone. Perhaps your debut would better be a showcase of what content you intend to make on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, rather than something that you choose to set aside, put together according to a traditional formula that is not going to be at all reflective of the content you end up making.
Yeah, Whimsy makes a point here. I still want to get you the big 90s anime hair. So what that's referencing is I had 2 different hairstyles planned for that human model's debut. The first one was kind of like, look at a little bit like, imagine Yamcha's hair from Dragon Ball Z, but blonde, right? So kind of like an 80s rock star, kind of like long hairstyle. And then I had like the short one I eventually did decide to go with. Right, so as I said to Whimsy, can you keep the drawing of like the 80s like anime space opera kind of like Yamcha rockstar hair, because I definitely want that as like an outfit in the future. To have the really long hair looks fucking great. By the way, I guess I should stop delaying that and get it at some point. So I'll talk to Whimsy about that. But anyway, yes. So don't worry about the debuts, guys. So again, when we look back at what we said before, debuts are tend to be things that really big content creators do, because it makes sense for them, because they already have massive followings, and it just builds a lot of hype, and it acts as like a vessel to get people to remember who they are if they've like shifted off, or there's like a little bit of period where they're kind of stagnating or don't know what to do, right? It makes sense for them because there's potentially a lot of people. It's like a big deal because they've got such a big audience and they've got some fancy new outfit, and people always love listening to their favorite content creators yap about themselves or their lore, whether it's their VTuber lore or their actual human being, like real person lore, essentially, right? So don't worry about the debuts. Another big one, male on stream is mostly bad for business, okay? So don't take it like personally. If a female ghosts you or says no, it's probably not personal. If you do want to reach out to a female content creator and ask for a collab or like an interview or whatever, I find the best way to go about it is to not fucking like weirdly like love bomb them or say or spam their chat or like reply to every single fucking thing they say on Twitter, essentially begging for attention. They usually have business emails. What I often do is I literally will send an email to their publicly available business email and say, hello there, blah blah blah, I'm a content creator, I really enjoy your work, I want to collaborate with you, here's what I want to do in the collab, and here's why. Basically like applying for a job almost, essentially, right? It's kind of the way I go about communicating with females. So guys, if you really want to collaborate with your Oshi, or you really want to collaborate with a female content creator who you have feelings for, by the way, as well, you're gonna come across as like really weird, right? When you ask a female for a collaboration, it has, even if she does collaborate with males, it has to make sense, right? If you're a train autistic or an escape
it
from
has
Tarkov,
to be a to be a business proposition, a viable one.
It has to be a viable business proposition, because again, these women, it could go seriously badly for them by having a male on stream, and they may be grinding, this may be their only source of income. It could seriously affect their channel if they just have one bad stream where they're a cute and funny high school girl yapping with a charisma vacuum of like a train. So trains is always a big one, but like a train autistic, right? It just doesn't. It's just not good content at the end of the day, and no one wants to watch good content, and you're probably not going to be invited back either if it goes back that badly, right? So make sensible choices when you collaborate with people, man or woman. Make sure it makes sense. And remember as well, is that when you become a male VTuber, guys, whether it's fair or not, even if you may be different, you may be one of the good ones, you have to embrace the fact that every male VTuber essentially debuts like they've already had a minor Google docie done against them. People will treat you with respect. People do spit on and mock the identity of a male VTuber. So you have to basically prove people wrong and show that you aren't one of those people, and that you're actually a worthwhile and decent individual to know. And if you genuinely aren't a weirdo, if you genuinely aren't a bad person, then again, the way you conduct yourself on streams or on Twitter or whatever will speak for itself, right? Even a slur throwing fucking shitlord like myself can get pretty decent, respectable people to say yes to a collab, right? So don't worry, guys. You don't have to be like the
You don't have to be squeaky
gentleman.
clean.
You don't have to be squeaky clean, right? You just have to be not so terrible you're a brand risk, or like a genuine potential predator, right? As well. And I would say that at the end of the day, I have every confidence that any male VTuber who comes into the space, you or aspiring male VTuber, can be successful. You just have to keep your eyes on the prize, guys, okay? Like, if you're here and you just want to keep it as a hobby, or you're here just to make friends, that's fine if that's what you want, but you can't engage in this business that way and then also complain about how no one watches you. If you want to be a successful content creator, male or female, it's not about what you want at the end of the day, really. It's about what your audience or audience is. Not even your audience, you don't have one yet, but it's that you have to provide something that people want to watch and come back to. And then when you do build an audience, is that you need to respect them and give them what they want, otherwise they will fuck off, right? So you need to take it seriously if you do want to grow. Sorry, I think Dr. Lonimy came here. Thank you very much for, oh my god, thank you very much for the 10 gifted memberships, Lonimy buddy. Thank you, my friends. How are you? Thank you. Hell yeah, Brolime's here.
Oh, Brolime, hello.
Yeah, hello, Brolime. How's it going, buddy? But yeah, where was I? Sorry. So we've gone through content. Yeah, remember as well, guys, content expectations from men are different from women as well. Femboy, this is something we didn't mention actually. Femboys are I
think femboys follow slightly different rules.
They follow exactly. They follow different rules, right? They follow different rules. But generally speaking, content expectations are different for men than they are for women. So like if you're looking for inspiration from other VTubers, there are women who you can draw inspiration from. I would say that my own personal Oshi, Kaneko Lumi, is I think a great like role model, or like a great example of a VTuber who went from struggling as a small content creator to becoming a very big successful content creator. But it's her attitude, right? It's what she did as a person behind the scenes to kind of develop and build her channel is what you can derive inspiration from. You can't like act like you can't act like a cute silly girl or like a quirky girl failure when you're a man, because obviously the overwhelmingly male demographic of VTuber fans don't want to see men being effeminate or weak.
Yeah, they want to see someone who's got their shit together for the most part.
They want to see someone who's got their shit together and has something almost like kind of like a little bit of a mentor figure, or someone who's got some kind of like specialization or kind of skill that is, again, you know, appealing to the male brain, essentially, right? Like DIY or worldly experienced man advice, like job advice, etc., stuff like that. So, and again, remember as well, male or female, is that when you start off as a variety streamer and you do nothing but streaming, again, it's quite simply not good enough. If you really want to grow your channel, it's primarily through YouTube videos. And again, the YouTube videos don't necessarily have to be related to what you'll be doing on stream. It's been the meta since time immemorial, where you make YouTube videos, hopefully they gain some kind of traction or success. They can be guides, I don't know, reviews, essays on contemporary shit. Like, one thing I want to do is I want to make video essays on the X-Files, but my point is that I could have been a channel who does like video essays on the X-Files, and then you turn to my stream and then I'm doing shit like this, or I'm like playing video games. What you have to take into account is that as you get bigger, the content is always a factor in your success, but there reaches a point where people will just rock up and watch you, whatever you're doing, because they like you, right? It's become almost like a habit, where it's like 6 o'clock on a Friday night and they're just going to rock up and watch the Armchair or Maulington stream. Maybe they don't necessarily like what I'm doing, they're not particularly engaged, but you know what, I like Maulington, so I'm going to stick around in his stream and watch him. So remember that as well, by the way, is that it's not always about the quality of your content. Sometimes it is a problem with your reach, with getting out there and showing off to, you know, potential audiences, say, hey, I am here and I'm someone who's worth watching. So remember that as well. So the way you kind of address those problems is it's not just about making a competent product that people will enjoy and actually sit through and watch. You also need to figure out how you're going to get them through the door in the first place. And yes, the YouTube algorithm does work in mysterious ways, and some people do get picked. The magic claw of success does pick up some people, perhaps before their time really, whilst others are left to languish. But what you have to remember though is that if you really are that good, eventually I think you will eventually reach that level of success that you hope for. Kind of, I would say that luck is a factor in one becoming a successful content creator, but I would say that luck mainly affects how quickly you kind of rise. It doesn't determine whether or not you do rise, I would say. I think it just just affects the speed. I don't know, what do you think about that, Armchair?
I think that assessment is mostly correct because if you have, from at least from what I've seen of YouTube, it does seem like a solid if you have a solid strategy when it comes to what content to make, what content gets you an audience that's going to be engaged with future instances of when you release content, then it doesn't I don't think you need too much luck because once you get that trial and error down, I think it's mostly just, again, like you said, luck determines how quickly you grow in size rather than whether you do at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. So so challenges again. I guess to kind of take the edge a little bit off of male VTubers who are, frustrated with their situation, I would say yes, it is. It is harder to be a male VTuber than it is a female VTuber. I would say that definitely is a factor. But we do have different strengths, though. As men and women, we are different. So we've got different strengths and weaknesses. And at the end of the day, guys, remember that just simply wallowing in self-pity and feeling sorry for yourself and complaining about your situation in life might feel good. It might make you feel a little bit happier, might help you cope with the situation, but it's not going to change your situation. So remember, you've been... Just remember, right? Just keep learning, keep trying to improve, and eventually you will get there, right? You just need to take a proactive and realistic approach to content creation. Look at your funny numbers, think about what's trending, right? Just stop blaming the fact that you don't have tits and a vagina for the fact that you're not successful. You can be a very successful content creator in this space as a male VTuber, and you can prove all the antis wrong. You just have to think about how you personally, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and how you can differentiate yourself from the others and prove to people that you are someone who's worth watching, because that's the thing as well, right? Is that you may not necessarily even realize, you may be completely misguided on what your strengths are coming into content creation. Like, I came into VTubing thinking that I would be incredibly fucking boring and unable to just yap on stream and talk about shit, and I had this thought in my head that people would only watch me for my fucking sick ass like gameplay, right, and my gaming streams. And it turns out that I am a really fucking boring gaming streamer, and people actually just like it when I yap about VTubing shit. So the point is that you should experiment, because you might be surprised you might be surprised of how capable you actually are. I think a lot of VTubers in particular, they get the brainworms, they put themselves down a lot, but you would be surprised about how much potential that you have in there if you just let it out. You might surprise yourself with what you can accomplish. But then also, just experiment with many different things. You try one thing, doesn't work out, okay, try something different that you like. Maybe that'll work out instead. So yeah, I guess I'll end it there. Anything else you want to say, Armchair?
Not really. I think that was a pretty good summary.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Yes, I'll let you go now, Armchair. Thank you very much for the collab, buddy. And I hope I hope you feel better and that you're not too tired, and that you can relax now finally after your your Godzilla of a stream earlier.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on as well. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you.
Yes, I will be going to conk myself out.
No, I always enjoy these chats. No, thank you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Same here. See you.
Okay, see ya. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching today's stream. I'm going to get back to work on the Dizzy Docky and get some production stuff for some videos and collabs sorted out, including my Yoshi Push tournament as well. So, enjoy the rest of your diet, guys. Thank you very much for the memberships, for the donations, and I'll see you next time. Love you all. Oh, actually, I forget. Raids. Let's try to raid someone, maybe. Is anyone streaming? Who's streaming? Oh my god, my phone's in the way. Legal Mindset. Let's raid Legal Mindset. So yeah, guys, feel free to go off and do whatever you want, and I'll see you next. I'll see you next stream. Live details. God, I always forget how to do this. Is that customization? Redirect. Here we go. Redirect. Legal Mindset. Okay. Save. Okay. Love you all very much, my lovely boys.